Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here as we begin the second half of the season here for the G4 Sim Racing Vintage Clothing Series here tonight at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We saw these drivers last week during the All-Star race, but Sam, tonight these drivers have to deal with this track again, but this time it's for 200 laps.
It's more of an endurance race than anything else that these drivers are going to have to go through. I mean, last week, it felt like a long race. It was 80 laps. We didn't count the caution laps that were being put down. So that's going to be a little bit of a help for these drivers. But still, 200 laps, only 5 sets of tires for these drivers to work with. So every 40 laps, we're expecting to see these drivers coming in for some tires.
Jake Hounshell is going to line up on the pole position for this one. Third in the points coming into this race behind the points leader, Christopher Morse. So that is your front row. Another thing that's different for this race and the All-Star race is the fact in the All-Star race, they were out there racing for purse. Here tonight, there actually are points on the line.
Points on the line. Race 8 of 16. So it's the halfway point for these drivers. For those that are further in the back, they're hoping for some of these front runners to stumble. There's no playoffs, so it's all about how consistent can you be throughout the whole entire season.
You know, it's interesting because I was talking to Tyler Riggs just prior to these drivers heading out there for qualifying. And I said, you know, is there maybe just a little bit more grip for these drivers here tonight as opposed to the All-Star race? And he says, you don't even know the word grip when you're in this mod. So these drivers, obviously with the fact that this is a little bit more late afternoon conditions and we were at nighttime conditions for that All-Star race, we may end up seeing those tires wear down even more. I think it was about, 25, 30 laps that we really saw drivers struggling on old tires in the All-Star race event.
Yeah, we're looking at around lap 15 to about 20. The tires will drop off even sooner than that. I think during the All-Star race, the hottest we saw the track be was around 115 possibly. These drivers are starting out with the track temp being 128 degrees. So already about 13 degrees hotter than it was at its hottest during the All-Star race. So it's going to be hot. It's going to be slick. Cars are going to be slipping all around all throughout this race.
See on the outside there of row 2, Tyler Riggs, our broadcast colleague. We're going to be checking in with him during the course of this race as well, as he'll be our FRN in-race reporter. So if we end up having some opportunities, we'll be getting an idea what the drivers are experiencing out there. But hopefully they can pace themselves. We're going to have to pace ourselves up here in the booth, and we hope that you guys enjoy tonight's coverage as well. We'll be keeping an eye on the chat here as well, so if you want to chat with us and we'll chat with you because it's going to be a long one. 200 laps of racing here tonight at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Hounshell and Morse wait for that pace car to turn left. And here we go. Longest race of the season here tonight in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are green.
And Hounshell and Morris really taking off together. I mean, I got to give credit to Morris for taking off at the same time and keeping it even with that 83 machine on the inside. But Morris in the preferred line should be able to keep this position in the lead, but these drivers, we saw during the All-Star race, they had that fast repair. They knew it was only for 80 laps. They were being pretty aggressive at the start, but this is going to be a lot longer of a race. How aggressive are we expecting these drivers really to be running around here?
I'm really surprised about that. I mean, yes, this is the closest these drivers are probably going to be if we manage to get into a long green flag run. So they're fighting for every position possible while they're within striking distance of each other. But you brought it up earlier. Only one faster pair. I mean, doggone, 199 laps is a long time to be riding around damaging off the pace.
I mean, all season, they've only had one faster pair all race long, and they've usually been pretty aggressive at the start and probably halfway marker of this race just because they know that they have that faster pair to use. But this time around, this is our longest race, 300 miles that they have to go, and already a position being put down. Now that's going to be Blaine Atkins going for the lead and easily making that pass on Houndshell, who Houndshell looked like he was pretty much able to just say, hey, take that away from me. I don't want to battle you this early on.
O'Brady going to move to third. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried because, yes, the track conditions are much different than they were in the All-Star race, but we do have the All-Star race to kind of fall back on as far as some early notes. And I don't know if you'll remember this, Sam, but back during that All-Star race, Blaine Atkin charged to the front, but we really saw his car go away big time on the long run. So I'm a little worried seeing him charging up to the front as soon as he is.
Yeah, maybe it's trying to do the same strategy of getting up front. Hopefully he can have a big enough lead until they have to come in the pits. Like we said, lap number 40 to about 52 is the marker these drivers are looking for pit stops. It's a pretty wide window, but it really matters on the different driving styles that we're going to be seeing. Like we said, Blaine Atkins during the All-Star race pushed it extremely hard, looking for that lap 40 marker. For other drivers that are running in the back, really not trying to push their tires too hard, they could probably be aiming for that lap 52, and instead of a four pit stop race, turning this into possibly a three or four pit stop is really that range that these drivers are looking for.
Yeah, but do you really want to go that long on a set of tires is the question, unless maybe you've been able to figure out something to be able to save some tires for that long of a run. Is we got a battle here for the fourth position. Jeff Green looks in his rearview mirror, and no, that's not a DeLorean, that's a Chevy Lumina sponsored by Back to the Future. Gerald Campbell with some new colors here tonight on that 31.
Yeah, Gerald Campbell still staying with the retro scheme, but this time with that Back to the Future. And Gerald Campbell, our winner of the All-Star race. We'll see if he'll be able to have that 31 machine up front at the end of this thing. But really, the battling that I'm watching out for is this battle for second place for Houndshell. Under fire by Bo Brady, and Bo Brady already under that 83 machine. And looking like that 9 car is going to be making that pass as they're still side by side coming out of 4.
It doesn't look like Houndshell again going to put up much of a fight. We saw him let Blaine Atkin by earlier, and now going to slot back into the third position. Another thing I've noticed here as well is that second groove, I don't know if it's just the fact that if a driver's up there, they're realizing there's no way I'm going to be able to get the advantage or let this car go, but there really does not seem to be that run off the corner like we saw in the All-Star race on that outside line.
Yeah, I think that's mainly because of the heat that's in this track. It's making it extremely hard as Jeff Green now under Houndshell trying to make a pass for third place. Yeah, it mainly looks like the driver on the outside, the track is so slick, they're not able to get that runoff that they were getting last week.
As Green tries to get the inside for the third position. This series runs about 15 minutes of qualifying, and that's because a number of drivers race in another league before coming over here. Jeff Green is one of those, so I don't know what race that other league had, but I mean, Jeff Green running 2 races here tonight, and the second one is 200 laps.
Yeah, I believe he had an All-Star race. I'll take a quick look to see what other league that was. But Jeff Green, a favorite to up here. I mean, he's always been quick in these 87 machines, and just missed out on the opening shootout race last week for making it into the All-Star race, and just missed out with that 10 machine looking for redemption and hopefully a win here. Jeff Green has been quick at almost every single oval we've been at.
Things are kind of boxed up back here. From 5th place on back, that's where you find Gerald Campbell, Tyler Riggs, that's 5th and 6th. Then you got 2 guys that kind of are opposites since the drop of the green flag. Christopher Morse Jr. has dropped back to 8th. The car in front of him is the 63 of Hank Steinmiller, who was up there towards the top of the leaderboard as far as practice speeds, did not put in a qualifying time, started at the back and almost up into the top 5.
Almost up in the top 5, so close. Steinmiller, yeah, like you said, he's someone who did not put down a qualifying lap, and it's someone we're expecting to see up front at some point in that 63 machine. So far, Blaine Atkin, we're only 10 laps into this stint, but so far still ahead. But it looks like he might be losing that lead, and at that point that we were talking about, where he might be losing speed compared to the other drivers around him.
Looked like a regularly scheduled stop, but awfully early for the 96 of U.S. Olympic gold medalist Todd Eldridge, as he brought his machine to the attention of his crew. Now falls 2 laps down to the leaders before coming back out on track.
Looking on that machine, and it looked like he's actually going to be using a fast repair early. Had some damage, hard damage actually. He wrecked coming out of turn number 2 for that 96 machine that cost him and made him feel like he needs to come in early to use that fast repair early on.
Todd Eldridge was involved in a very exciting finish in, I believe it was the second heat of the All-Star Open, transferring his way into the All-Star race. And right now we're starting to see, as Blaine Atkin pulls away, we're about to have about a 6-car train from second place on back, because right now you got Bo Brady and Jake Hounshell. They're battling for third place, but Gerald Campbell, Tyler Riggs, Hank Steinmiller, they're all starting to catch up here, along with Christopher Morris Jr.
Yeah, I went back to look and see what Jeff Green was running. He actually was running at Darlington earlier on today. But yeah, that battle between Steinmiller, Riggs, and others, they are still right on top of one another. And these drivers, their tires are just squealing through the corners just because of how much they're sliding through. It might not be visible for you, but these drivers are constantly sideways through the corner, wearing down those tires more and more every lap. And the track temp has just been getting hotter and hotter since we dropped the green. Started out at 127, now up to 129 degrees on the track temp.
One thing I've got to wonder about as well, I think we saw a couple of drivers have issues with this.
Oh no! Bo Brady and Hounshell making contact, and that was massive between those two drivers.
Alice Myhand having to take an evasive maneuver through the grass to avoid the 9 of Bo Brady.
That was just a little bit of contact from Hounshell, and Hounshell then got on the apron that just caused him to drift up drastically into the 9, and hard contact into both machines that hopefully don't have to use their fast repair this early, but they might have to think about it.
It's going to be the big question for these drivers. I see a lot of that damage for the 83 is to the front end of the race car, so that's certainly going to affect him, I would think, depending on how hard the hit is on straightaway horsepower and translating into straightaway speed, as we'll take a look at a replay of what happened over in turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the bigger things that we were talking about with Tyler Riggs earlier, is that he told us that these machines can take a pretty hard beating on the quarter panels, but if you take any engine damage, that's the key of what is truly hurting your machine.
A couple of other drivers that may have got little bits and pieces of that. Looks like Gerald Campbell might have had a little bit of contact with the front end of his 31, and maybe a little bit of contact to the right rear of Hank Steinmiller.
Yeah, there's slight damage to the front end of the 31 as they're pulling into the pits. Looking like Atkin looks like actually Jeff Green. Something looks odd in our telemetry. I think he might have tried to fake some drivers out on coming into the pits and actually didn't come in.
I think you are correct. I think that he may have hit the line that our telemetry picks up, but then made the right-hand evasive maneuver back onto the racetrack, and our telemetry shows him coming to pit road, but he did not. So a good catch there, Sam, as Jeff Green looks like he will be the race leader when we go back green here. With doing a little bit of fake pitting, looks like Tyler Riggs. Steinmiller, I guess that there wasn't any contact with the right rear. It was awfully close, but sometimes the way iRacing works, and you know this, Sam, when a car spins out, maybe at just the right time, if you end up going near a car, you actually go through them, and it actually doesn't damage your race car at all.
Yeah, we like to call it as net code, as it's something where the driver can drive through it, and sometimes you do get affected and sometimes you don't, just because of the coding, the way the internet works. For some drivers, you didn't get hit. For others, it does. And luckily, it looks like for Steinmiller, the contact that possibly could have happened did not happen for that 63 machine, and will continue to be running forward.
That caution came out at a very opportune time for Todd Eldridge. As he was 2 laps down, he'll get one of his laps back. Looks like Jake Hounshell and Bo Brady, they both did not take fast repairs They instead came down, tried to repair their cars as best they could right now, and try and keep that faster pair in their hip pocket. Tyler Riggs, our in-race reporter, got an opportunity there to run the first 15 laps under green. Looks like he's going to be restarting second as he did not come to pit road. Let's see if we can get a word with him and see what those first 15 laps were like for him. Tyler, Sam, and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You guys, man?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Well, 15 laps under green. You got an opportunity to be able to feel what these tires are, how abrasive this track is with them here in the slightly more afternoon conditions than you guys had in the All-Star race. Any difference, or are you feeling a lot more wear than you did in the All-Star race event?
Well, to give you guys an idea, Gerald Campbell right there did pit. Not to trying to spoil strategy, but he took lefts only, okay? Mind you, we're both trying to save a bit under that green flag run. He said he's down to, I think, 84% already on that right front. Or 87% on that right front. So I'm feeling better about not pitting right there, just because the more you could kind of cheat your way into saving tires, especially early in the race fills, I think you'll be better set off. I'll have more leeway, hopefully, in the back half of this race, with about 175, maybe even 50 to go to decide, okay, I could do a couple pit stops here and have some really fresh tires at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, it's going to be a long race here today, and tire strategy is going to be something for a lot of these drivers to focus on. But do you think that running up front, getting that fresh air, is the key thing for these drivers? And is it difficult being behind other drivers with this dirty air for you to save your tires as well as you want to?
The air, it does affect just a tick. I mean, I had a couple corners there where I was behind Gerald, kind of right on him, and I got a little bit extra, maybe push going into the corner that I didn't want. But I think more importantly, guys, it's a factor of if you are going to battle and try to pass, right? You have to be quick about it. You do not want to be side by side. Side by side in these things is the worst on tire wear. So if you're going to pass somebody, you want to make it quick. If somebody's got the advantage on you there, you might just want to let them go early in the race. At least for me, that's my strategy. Like I said, I'm trying to maybe get to the point where I've got an extra set compared to everybody else just to have that leeway. And if that sacrifices a little bit of speed or positions in the early part of this race, I'm okay with that.
One thing that we saw in the All-Star race, Tyler, was that if someone got to the inside of you, you actually were able to find a little bit of grip in that second groove to hold them off. Looks like anybody that gets kicked up to that middle groove now is basically having to wave the white flag and give up the position. Do you think that maybe there will be a chance we'll see some rubber laid up right there and maybe a groove form later on in this race, or is it basically everybody just trying to fight for that white line?
I think later on in the race, you could very well see that second line come in more because guys are naturally obviously going to battle more as you get towards the middle and end of this race. So another key will be as the time of day kind of moves forward as well. So I'd look out for it early race. It's definitely a fight for the bottom, I think, just to be able to hold that white line. You could try to make the outside work, but it's not a benefit to the tires. It's extremely rough there. So yeah, early on, inside the line, I think as we get through the rest of the race, maybe the outside as well.
All right, well, Tyler, we see the lights are out atop the pace car, and you guys are going to be going green, so we'll let you go and talk to you later.
All right, thank you, fellas.
Jeff Green going to get us back underway, followed by Tyler Riggs, Hank Steinmiller, Christopher Morse Jr. Those were the drivers who did not pit under this caution. Gerald Campbell, the highest up there with fresh tires, will restart in fifth.
Yeah, I think right now the tires is going to be the main thing for us to focus on throughout this race. Like we heard from Riggs.
Oh, boy. Sorry to cut you off, but Steinmiller almost got into the door of Tyler Riggs and nearly spun it before they even got into the entrance of one.
I mean, that's one thing that you got to worry about is the fact that these drivers that are on fresher tires, and I know Steinmiller isn't, but that is the difference that we're going to be seeing is drivers like Gerald Campbell, he's on the freshest tires compared to these guys. He's going to be making aggressive moves to get up front as fast as possible to really try to gap himself just in case this thing goes green.
It's around Tyler Riggs for third. Now looks to get by Steinmiller for second. Another driver. Are we surprised? That is trying to fight his way back up there from a restart is Blaine Atkin in that 0-5. Going around the outside line of Seth Harrelson. And that moves him up to fifth place. Saw Blaine Atkin on the initial start of this race trying to make it 3 wide for the third position. And we know that he really likes to make moves on the restarts.
Yeah, and he's really figured out the pace in the middle of these corners as he really got in the back bumper of the 31. But right now, early in this run is where we're going to be seeing Blaine have the best chance to gain on drivers. He's the fastest one in these first about 5 to 10 laps, and then he starts to drop off. So he has to be making these moves quick before the tires drop off.
Gets around Gerald Campbell, so now the highest driver on the fresh tires. Up ahead of him, drivers that have been out there for 22 laps on their set of Goodyears. Hank Steinmiller in second. Jeff Green currently showing the way, but only by about half a second.
And you're seeing the real difference between the tires, between Steinmiller and Atkin right there. It's the center of the corner where you're just able to carry so much more speed than everyone else on these fresher tires, where you can gain a lot of that time as well as on the exit of the corners.
Yeah, also on the straightaways. I mean, he was, half a car length ahead of Steinmiller off of 4, had him cleared by the time they got down to turn 1.
Yeah, that's just the power of the exit and the fact that you're able to carry so much more speed than everyone else. And Atkin's going to continue to push forward as he's now 3/10 back and even closer now coming out of 4.
So right there with Jeff Green could not hold the bottom through 3 and 4. Atkin was able to. It's the shorter way around the racetrack. It's the faster way around the racetrack. And now Atkin all over the back bumper of Jeff Green going through 1 and 2.
And Jeff Green going to stay on the high side, just like Tyler Riggs said. Everyone's going to be trying to just let cars go on by. And just like that, Blaine Atkin back to the front.
Now, I'd be a little bit worried if I'm somebody like Jeff Green or Hank Steinmiller, because we mentioned the fact that in the All-Star race, it was around lap 30, we saw drivers struggling on the tires that they had. I mean, these guys, yes, they were able to run about, 3-4 laps under caution, but we're only about maybe 6 to 8 laps away from that mark.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that they were on about 40-lap old tires at that point, just because of the caution that came out and the tire wear that the drivers were dealing with. That's what caused this the drivers to have so much wear and tear. Because you got to remember the showdown as well as the All-Star race, both of them were where the caution laps were not counting. So those tire wear that the drivers were on, they're about 30 laps in. It was probably around 38 to 40 laps. So a lot of wear and tear for those drivers, and I think that's what we're expecting. Lap 30 to lap 40 to about lap 50 is when we'll probably see a lot of these drivers going to the pits.
Here's where the fun part of the pack is for us, maybe not necessarily for the drivers, is Christopher Morris Jr., Bo Brady move around Seth Harrelson, who, almost got up into Brady there. Close call off of 2. Dallas Myhand in the 41 there as well. Myhand had actually made a bit of forward progress on that last restart. Had worked his way up to around the 5th position and now is dropped off, falling back to 9th.
I think Myhand might be in a conservation mode type of a mood where he's not really trying to push his car too hard right here. Does want to stay close with the lead lap machines, but he's really aiming for the late run where he can finally make that push like we're used to seeing Myhand do, where he saves his fast repair compared to everyone else for the final about 20 laps or so, to where he has the best car, the best tires for the end of the race.
You can see the damage there, especially to the left front and left rear of Bo Brady's Chevrolet. However, he's been able to make forward progress up to 7th after getting involved in the first caution. The other guy that was involved, though, Jake Hounshell back here, you can see that damage really affecting the speed of the 83, currently in that 10th position.
Yeah, Hounshell going to be continuing to just push forward and hope for the best, but very slow compared to the rest of the field at the moment and extremely off the pace, as he's almost a second off of the 07, and that's only for a battle of 9th place that we're seeing between those drivers. As up front, looks like Blaine Atkin pulling away from Jeff Green, and really a lot of the action still going on is around 5th on back, where those drivers are within a couple of tenths of one another.
Now, the driver that came into this race started with some struggles is Randy Koking, right now in 11th place. So we found out that he's been having some issues with his pedals, and so that's 200 laps of worry, hoping that your pedals are going to work going into the corner.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of drivers that have had pedal issues before, and it's so frustrating at times because for others, it's the fact that they can't get enough power into their car. For some, it's because their brakes just don't work. And both sequences, it's so difficult to just stay consistent and be in the right mindset of, I've got a chance to run well. The one positive for Koking is he's far enough back to where he isn't going to be put a lap down anytime soon, and he's able to save his tires, and possibly with these drivers up front that are racing hard, there's a chance for them to use up their fast repairs and possibly wreck out while they're on their fast repairs.
Speaking of saving tires, I think that's what Blaine Atkin might be doing because we saw that he had fresher tires. Jeff Green has the same tires that were on his car when we went green to start this race, and Green's been able to reel Atkin back in. I'm looking at the lap times right now, and Green's been about a 10th quicker. I think this is more the 0.5 backing his pace down than the 10 actually reeling the 0.5 in.
I would like to say that, but at the same time, it's around that 10 lap marker where we've seen Blaine Atkins 10 laps into a run where his car just starts to drop off compared to everyone else. So maybe he's trying to save, but at the same time, I think he might have pushed his 0.05 just a little bit too far.
Battle for 5th. Tyler Riggs, Christopher Morse Jr., the 26 and the 3. Both of these drivers are on the same number lap tires, so both of them pretty much on equal ground. Just comes down to who was saving their tires the most here in these first 32 laps.
Yeah, who saved their tires the most and who was really set up. But I got to say, I'm surprised Dallas hasn't caught up to these guys, but finally has gotten by Bo Brady and Harrelson, and now up to 7th place and trying to run down both these drivers of the 26 and the 3. See him catching up to them pretty soon if they start getting a little bit racy here for 5th place.
Carlson just went around Bo Brady, moving up to 8th is Jeff Green on the back bumper of Blaine Atkins still. And you mentioned the fact that Jeff Green earlier on tonight ran at Darlington. Talk about a tire conservation track. So maybe helped him out in being able to save tires here tonight at Charlotte as well.
Yeah, I mean, Darlington, it's completely different from Charlotte. But like I said, it's a little bit about saving your tires and trying to stay off the wall and stay consistent. And that's going to help a ton here for this endurance race. 200 laps these drivers are going to have to deal with. And Jeff Green finally getting under Blaine Atkin. Has to make sure he doesn't drift up. Almost does.
Yeah, I think he had to lift right there in the center as he was not able to hold the bottom. And as these two have been battling, Hank Steinmiller has now joined and made it a threesome. Look at Jeff Green trying to throw some blocks down the back straightaway.
Jeff Green is going to try to do everything he can to hold off that 63 machine, but also get up front and lead some laps. I think Jeff Green is one of those drivers that's just has some poor luck. I mean, still has been quick up front every week that he's been racing with these guys, and always a favorite to possibly win one of these things.
Taking a look again there into turn 1. Couldn't quite get to the left rear quarter panel this time, and saw how that car really tightened up on him through the center, having to lift. That's going to allow Steinmiller to take a look here down to turn 3. Not quite close enough, and you see Jeff Green there. Turn the car up there, up the hill, going into turn 3, allowing him the ability to be able to drive it deeper into the corner. And look at the run he gets off of turn 4.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. 1 and 2, Jeff Green just carries too much speed to where he doesn't really know where he wants to place it. Now trying to make that outside line work here. And, there were talks with some of these drivers that later in a run, the outside line was going to start working in. And we're starting to see it here. Jeff Green and Blaine Atkin almost contact there at a 2.
Close call there, as I was wondering if Green was drifting up just a little too high. Got awfully close to that yellow outside safer barrier and nearly came down to Blaine Atkin, turning left to avoid it.
Really didn't get the entry that he wanted through 3 and 4, but still able to stay side by side with the 0.5. And you're seeing there, Steinmiller's starting to see, hey, that outside line's starting to work a little bit more, but it's going to wear down your tires more than an inside line. Jeff Green to the point.
And he's going to move down in front of Blaine Atkin, just barely clears the nose of the 0.5, exiting out of turn 2. So Green back to the lead. Atkin going to try and take a look here in 3 and 4. And let's remind everybody that Jeff Green made that move around the outside line on about 15 lap older tires than Blaine Atkin has.
Yeah, I think that just shows that Blaine Atkin is really set up for that short run, and the longer the run goes on, the more the 0.5 is kind of in a struggling state. And that kind of makes me a little worrisome due to the fact that he did pit on that last restart with a 4-tire stop early. Now a set with only a couple of sets left compared to everyone else's. One extra set compared to the 0.5.
Whoa, close there. Quarter racing between Christopher Morse and Gerald Campbell as they are door to door off of turn 4. That is for the 4th position. Tyler Riggs looking on. One thing that we're going to have to talk about here that may be coming up in just a matter of moments is possible green flag pit stops for a number of these drivers that stayed out under our only caution. I cast my memory all the way back to Talladega, where pit road was as much of a problem for these drivers as the initial racetrack was, with the fact that you had the asphalt pit road entry and then the concrete pit stalls. It's the same deal here at Charlotte. I mean, these drivers are going to have to keep that in the back of their minds, especially with the fact of how worn down these tires are going to be.
Yeah, Blaine Atkin now making a pass for second place, possibly on the inside of Steinmiller. And really, like you said, for pit stops, it's going to be tricky for these drivers because, like you said, the difference between asphalt and for these guys, it's going to be so different. But a lot of slipping and sliding will continue on through pits. And we saw that also last week during the All-Star race. There was some slipping and sliding that cost some drivers positions when they were making their final pit stop during the All-Star race. Almost contact between Steinmiller and Atkin, as Atkin still stays on the inside.
And he might have gotten his left sides into the grass as well. Saw a little dirt kicked up there through the infield, heading through the first break of that D-shaped front straightaway, but he finally does complete the pass and moves into second place.
Yeah, hitting the grass is something that's extremely hard for your driver as a driver to just to hold on to. Your car just wants to grip into the grass and pull you in more and more. So if you just clip it once with one tire, you're going to be able to continue going forward. As Jeff Green, I think he got close to the wall there, did hit the wall out of 4, and now losing the lead, and now back to third and even more positions.
Boy, look at the momentum he has lost. He's going to drop all the way back at least to the 4th position as Christopher Morse Jr. moves by. Behind him, you've got the battle for 5th between Gerald Campbell and Tyler Riggs, and we should document as well, I think this is an unscheduled stop. Bo Brady in the 9 has just hit pit road. Remember, he got damage from our only caution of the night so far.
Yeah, Bo Brady coming in, taking some damage, repairs, well, some tires, not using a fast repair, going to get back out there. But this is the opening for those drivers that stayed out. The window is open for them to come in, but most of them are probably aiming for around lap 50, just so in case there's a late caution, they still have a tire set to work with in the later stages of a race.
That's what our in-race reporter Tyler Riggs was talking about, being able to try and save a set for later on in case we get some late race restarts. Because at this type of a racetrack, tires seem to mean everything. And we saw what Blaine Atkin was able to do on fresh tires, working his way up to the front. So, a lot of tracks that we go to, you might think that track position is more important than tires, but I would say that tonight, definitely tires are king.
Oh, definitely tires are king, and I think a lot of drivers were surprised on the fact that they were only going to have 5 tire sets to work with, and it basically was a minimal amount for these drivers where even if cautions came out, you still have to stick with your strategy of at this lap, that's when it'll come in, because if you differ off, you could be losing a set or even being a couple of laps short with just tires themselves.
Tyler Riggs is on the move. He just got around Jeff Green, who's obviously fighting that right side damage he just sustained a moment ago, and now makes the move for the 3rd position. So Riggs up into the podium at the moment as he gets around Steinmiller. Battle for the lead is about to be on. Highest running we've seen Christopher Morse Jr. all night so far, and he's got thoughts for that top position.
I was just looking back for that battle for 4th with Steinmiller and Jeff Green as you were talking about our leaders. I think Jeff Green might have scraped the wall coming out of 2. That machine is trying everything he can to gain positions, but also kind of out of control at the moment. As you were talking about lead position, Blaine Atkin under a lot of fire from Christopher Morse Jr.
Yes, Jeff Green getting up there into the wall. Remember, he did not come to pit road under the only caution we've had up to this point, and with him brushing the wall, it's putting him in mind back what we saw in the All-Star Open race. I think it was the second segment, the second stage of that All-Star Open, where a lot of drivers, when the tires wore down, they just couldn't even turn off the corner. It's like the car went straight up into the wall.
And a car that's struggling the most probably out of all these machines up here has to be Gerald Campbell at this point. Has that front end damage from early in that first caution, and has been slowly drifting back to 7th place.
Driver that just passed him, making some forward progress now, is Jake Hounshell. And I think he's used a fast repair. That car looks like it is 100% good.
Early fast repair being used, and now it's more of get up to the front and make sure that you stay away from any contact with any other drivers or anyone else, is for Hounshell. On that 83 machine, you're right, he has used that one fast repair that these drivers have.
Gerald Campbell, you talked about him struggling, so he's bringing his car to pit road now. And this could start the cycle of green flag pit stops as the battle for the lead still hot and heavy between Akin and Christopher Morse Jr.
Christopher Morse Jr. kind of in cruise control. He's caught up to 0.5, but really hasn't shown any time of feeling like, hey, I need to make this pass now on the 0.5 just yet. But he is kind of looking at the tendencies that Blaine Atkins has had here, entering every corner just in case he finds an opening to make a pass.
Another driver that's now starting to fall back. Hank Steinmiller in the 63 lost another spot to Dallas Myhand, so moved Myhand up to 6th. Steinmiller back to 7th.
I'm surprised to see the fact that we're seeing Christopher Morse Jr. as well as Tyler Riggs doing as well as they are. That just shows the power of them saving tires so far for the 3 and the 26, as everyone else behind him have been on the newer tires besides Steinmiller.
And I think Steinmiller just hit pit road. He did. Steinmiller actually, I think, got the wall just before coming to pit road because there's quite a bit of extensive right front damage now on that 63. Dallas Myhand in this lap also.
Yeah, re-looking, and it looked like it was a couple of laps ago when Steinmiller made that contact with the wall. Yeah, that was about 3 laps ago when he made the contact. Coming out of turn number 4, it looks like.
Seth Harleson's in. Christopher Morse Jr. from 2nd place is in, and we're starting to see maybe the strategy of a number of these drivers, maybe trying to make it every 50 laps coming to pit road, which for some of these drivers, like Christopher Morse Jr., Tyler Riggs, Jeff Green, if they can make it that far, they're going to have 2 sets of tires available to them in the closing stages of this race.
Yeah, and that's the key for these drivers, right? Is to have those extra sets for later on in the race, just in case we have some late cautions. Then make it to about 20 to 30 laps to go. You've got that set to work with and have faster tires than everyone else.
Now, what a lot of these drivers are hoping, though, is that this green flag pit stop cycle goes completely around because Christopher Morse Jr.'s 6th place on down are all currently 1 lap down. Your top 5 have not been to pit road yet.
Yeah, top 5 still have not been to pit road on this green flag run. Todd Eldridge, I'm looking back in 8th place, having some slight issues, but he'll have to be coming in here in the next 5 to about 8 laps. Here comes Tyler Riggs, as well as Houndshell into pits, and Jeff Green following suit. 3rd car into the pits.
Saw Tyler Riggs having a little bit of a problem slowing that car down there through the center of 3 and 4 to get it to pit road, but he did safely. Houndshell and Green in also. We're waiting for 2 drivers to hit pit road. Blaine Atkin 05, who I thought might be indicating he was coming around this time, but nope, he stays out an extra lap. Randy Kokine is also staying out an extra lap in that Castrol GTX Chevrolet.
Here's the thing, both those drivers have pitted on that last restart, so they could still be out there for another 10 to about 14 more laps or so. So just trying a different strategy than what the other drivers are on. So Blaine Atkin going to be trying to stay out as long as he can, but based on the cars that have already pitted, it's going to be the 3 machine of Christopher Morse Jr. leading the charge in 3rd place.
And the question is, too, just how much time are Atkin and Kokine going to give up to the fresh tires of Christopher Morse Jr.? I mean, that last time by, Christopher Morse Jr. ran an exact full second faster than Blaine Atkin. And remember, Morse Jr. was all over the back bumper of Blaine Atkin before he ducked his Bass Pro Shop Chevy onto pit road.
I think that's the one thing, though, with this strategy is we're really never going to truly know what the true difference is until about 50 laps to go in this race if we stay green all the way to the end. So Atkin feeling comfortable. If a caution comes out, though, there is the lucky dog position that will be given for the driver that is first of the lap down machines will be given a lap back. But for everyone else, there's no wave around. This is kind of a tricky situation that everyone's in, and Blaine Atkin might be playing the strategy of, I'm going to stay out just in case a caution comes out.
Randy Kokine's in this lap, so that leaves Blaine Atkin, the only driver that has not come to pit road, and was looking at terms of drivers' amount of time on pit road. Looks like for the most part, everybody just doing a regular 4-tire pit stop. Nobody spending any extra time in their stall to repair damage. I think the longest pit stop that we had was Bo Brady, about 28 seconds on his pit stop.
Yeah, Bo Brady has had extensive damage that he needed to get repairs on. Got a couple of seconds repaired on it. Getting back out there in the 9. Currently 1 lap down on the 9 machine, 11th place. Just the pass that was just made, though, was going to be Houndshell over Gerald Campbell, and that's going to be for third place at the moment. As Houndshell slowly moving forward, and here comes Tyler Riggs joining and making this a 3-car battle for third place. As we're waiting to see when Blaine Atkins will come in the pits.
I almost wonder here, too, because we know that several drivers played the strategy of staying out under our first and, up to this point, only caution of the race, which means that they've got 1, maybe 2 sets of tires for later on in this race. Does that kind of force Blaine Atkins' hand to stay out as long as he is, to make sure that he possibly is going to have 2 sets of tires waiting for him in the closing stages of this race, since he's already put on a set when he pitted under that first caution?
Yeah, I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on the drivers that have not, that pitted early and compared to the ones that did not pit. There's only a couple of drivers that have already done 2 stops so far. That's Houndshell, Campbell, Dallas Myhan, Seth Harlson, as well as Kokine and Bo Brady. And Eldridge. Those are your drivers that have pitted already for 2 times this race. Everyone else, only 1 time so far. We know Blaine Atkins will have to pit twice here in the next at least 7 to possibly 10 laps. That 05 machine is going to continue pushing forward, but like you said, losing time to what is the second place driver of Morse Jr.
Yeah, losing a lot of time. That last time around, 34.6 for Blaine Atkins. 32.9 for Christopher Morse Jr. So, I mean, there's almost a full 1.5 seconds being lost right there.
And it's continuing to grow as the laps tick on by for those 2 machines. I think the biggest gap so far that I'm surprised to see has got to be from second to third place, is that is about 6.5 seconds difference between Christopher Morse Jr. and Houndshell. Though I think that is probably the most shocking thing compared to our top 2.
That really is, because Houndshell, if he was still a damaged machine like we saw him when he was involved in the caution earlier on, it would make a little bit of sense. But no, he's already used a fast repair. That car is completely 100% okay. We saw him turning actually some really fast laps, cutting his way up through the field just prior to that pit stop. And I was expecting to maybe see him be able to cut his way up there into at least the top 2. But right now he's got Tyler Riggs starting to reel him in for third place.
And Tyler Riggs on the same tire compounds. Same tire length they've been on for both the 26 and the 83. 7 laps, about to be 8 laps on these tires. And so far, Tyler Riggs trying to catch up to Houndshell. But looking at that gap, it has not changed at all between second and third place. As there is a 2-lap difference between Christopher Morse Jr. and Houndshell of Christopher Morse Jr. is having 2 laps older tires compared to the drivers behind him.
Blaine Atkins finally brings the 05 to pit road on lap 62, as Christopher Morse Jr. is going to come around, and he is going to complete the lap, taking the race lead from Atkins. That'll move Jake Houndshell up to second, Riggs probably up to third, and it looks like, based off of with Atkins coming to pit road, we're pretty much at the same kind of a scenario that we were at prior to the pit stops, where everybody, with the exception of Todd Eldridge, is going to be back in the lead lap. Eldridge is going to be 1 lap down. That's where he was when we went back green for the restart. So Christopher Morse Jr. now with what is, according to our telemetry, it looks like about 6.5 seconds ahead of Jake Houndshell, who still is in that pretty good battle with Tyler Riggs. That is second and third. Gerald Campbell right now in fourth. Jeff Green in fifth. And Blaine Atkins now finds himself cycled back to sixth. But he is the driver out there with the fresher tires. It'll be fun to watch him try and cut his way back up through the field. We are more than a quarter of the way through this race, closing in quickly on halfway here tonight at Charlotte. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. You won't miss a thing. We're going to go Flatout Racing Network side by side.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the Veterans of Foreign Wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
We welcome you back here this evening to Charlotte Motor Speedway for the World 300. Nearly 70 laps of 200 in the books here tonight, and you saw, courtesy of our FRN side-by-side, the great battling going on from second place on back to fifth place between Tyler Riggs, Jeff Green, Gerald Campbell, and Jake Hounshell. The guy in that group that's been on the move is that 10 car.
Yeah, Jeff Green is coming, and he's on the same tires that I would say that his Tyler Riggs is on. So it's more of how have you been saving your tires compared to everyone else, and Jeff Green on the move. I think the biggest thing, though, is that they haven't really been able to gain up at all on Christopher Morris Jr., who's in the lead. The gap has stayed about 6.5 seconds back in a car that's coming quick. That's got to be the 05 Blaine Atkin, who's basically about 1.5 seconds back from this pack of 4 cars.
And Blaine Atkin is on an entirely different sequence as far as tire strategy and fuel strategy than Christopher Morris Jr., coming to pit road about 10 laps later than Christopher Morris Jr. did. However, right now, if you give the tire set advantage, it would go to Christopher Morris Jr., who right now has only used 1 set of tires. Blaine Atkins has used 2.
Yeah, Christopher Morris Jr. really in a field of his own at the moment as that battle for second place. Jeff Green trying to figure out, do I make the outside work or the inside? And the more he stays in limbo, the more it's bringing in Gerald Campbell now in 4th place, trying to make that move for 3rd.
Obviously, with this being the 1987 cars, they run the 1987 rules. They also run the 1987 point system, which means there are no playoffs. It's whoever accumulates the most points at the end of the season is the champion. Well, Christopher Morris Jr. has been very consistent, comes in the point leader, but the one thing he hasn't done yet this year is go to victory lane.
Yeah, Christopher Morris Jr. is someone that we've thought multiple times probably would have gotten a win by now. Driver that is coming out of the pits, that's Bo Brady that we just saw under the top, basically from 2nd on to 5th place. Bo Brady, that is his 4th pit stop of the race, and just not the way that he wanted his race to go in that 9 machine.
And you have to wonder how many of those pit stops has been to repair damage, how many is to take on tires. I would think at least 2 of them is to come down and repair damage on that 9 machine.
At least 2, possibly 3 of those 4 have been for tires, which puts them in a pretty rough spot for tires at the end of this race.
A number of these drivers we saw all coming to pit road around the lap 50 mark. I think it was about 60 laps that we then saw Blaine Atkin come to pit road. So I think we can safely say we're going to see these drivers back on pit road probably at the halfway point of this race. It's looking like they're pretty much going to split this into 50-lap runs.
Yeah, 50-lap runs is going to be that extra tires to work with at the end of the run, just in case we see a late caution that comes up. But looking at drivers that are running in the back that were looking for better days as well. I mean, you got to know that the 63 that just got put down a lap down of Hank Steinmiller, he was looking for a better day. Steinmiller was our fastest during practice, did not put a qualifying lap down, qualified back in 12th. Right now running 10th. It's just not the day the 63 was looking for.
No, you can see that right side damage, and with damage that significant, we know that he got up into the outside wall, but he must have hit that wall a ton, and that really has affected the handling of his race car ever since that happened. That car was up as high as 3rd place in this race, and that was only about maybe 25 laps ago.
Yeah, it was right before pit stops happened, and about 3 laps before he came into the pits, he clobbered the outside wall and the inside wall a little bit there, and that's why we see the heavy damage on the 63.
Right now, he, as you saw, got put a lap down, so he is in the free pass position should we get a caution. Todd Eldridge and Bo Brady currently 2 laps down apiece. We've got 9 cars currently on the lead lap of 12 that are out there still running. Christopher Morse Jr., though, continuing to hold very good pace. I mean, the guys behind him are running somewhat similar lap times, but Morse still gaps them by about...
Oh no! Bo Brady makes contact with Gerald Campbell, and around the 31 goes. I was just about to say the difference of tires was about to kick in. No caution. 31 able to get back straight, only losing 1 position, but that's a scary moment between a car that's on the lead lap and a lap machine.
And Brady's car came to rest down at the safe repair just before pit road entrance, but it was well off the racing surface with oncoming traffic, so no caution going to be thrown. The one thing I'd be worried about for Gerald Campbell, yes, he only lost 1 position because of that, but caution's
Caution.
thrown.
That's going to be Randy Coquine.
Oh, right in the middle of the track. That definitely was caution warranted.
Coquine all by himself, self-spinning into turn number 1. Kind of already lost it coming out of 4 and just never recovered after getting by Bo Brady, really. And after crossing the line, just got loose, got on the grass, and around that 11 goes.
That caution is going to help 2 people. Hank Steinmiller will get back in the lead lap as he was the free pass car here under this yellow. But I really think this is going to help Gerald Campbell as well, because remember, he was the driver that started that round of green flag pit stops. So he was out there on the oldest tires, and that slide that we saw him have, tremendous save after contact with Bo Brady, but that certainly didn't do his tires any favors either.
No, it didn't do him any favors, but now it's more of, hey, do you come in again? Gerald Campbell oh man, that's tough for these drivers to make a decision here of when they want to come in now, because it's lap 77. For the drivers that did not pit on that last restart, they could come in, but that would be giving away that advantage they have for later on in this race.
Well, right now, if we look at some of the drivers, how long they stayed out, how long they've been out there since their pit stop, you look at guys like Tyler Riggs and Jake Hounshaw, they've been out there for 26 laps, Akin out there for 17 laps. We had the caution come out, I think it was on lap 15, and we saw drivers decide to stay out, so we may see some drivers still stay out under this caution.
And they do. Our top 3, Tyler Riggs, Blaine Atkin, and Hounshaw. Those 3 drivers staying out. Everyone else decided to come into the pits. Biggest driver that loved this caution had to be Steinmiller in that 63 machine, able to get the lucky dog position back on the lead lap.
Well, we saw that save there by Gerald Campbell, a save that would have put a smile on Christopher Lloyd's face, as we're going to now take a look and see what happened to Randy Coquine. And this was, as we said, right in the center of the racetrack where that car came to rest. You alluded to it earlier, Sam. That grass just pulls you in. He clipped the infield grass on the front straightaway.
It was one of those things that just built off of that Bo Brady getting back on track, and it's just Coquine had nowhere to go during that accident, and the grass was the main victor of that battle that went between the machine and grass.
Bo Brady having to make an evasive move there to avoid the spinning 46, and a little surprised. It almost looked like he was going to hit that outside line, or the outside wall broadside, and I think he kind of did, but it just shot his car 90 degrees the wrong way to the left down the banking of turn 1.
Yeah, you never know really what hitting the wall is going to do. Sometimes it helps you, sometimes it just sucks you into the wall, and other times it just launches you into the inside. So looks like Coquine went for another ride after hitting the wall there.
So you mentioned the fact Tyler Riggs deciding to stay out. Same for Blaine Atkin and Jake Hounshaw. Riggs stayed out under the first caution, staying out here under the second caution as well. I'm going to assume that he's shooting for target lap 100 before coming to pit road, but let's find out from the man himself. Let's have a conversation here under pacing with our in-car reporter. Tyler, Sam, and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios again. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, Tyler, you're staying out again after you did on the last restart. Are you just going for having the most tires at the end here and hope for that biggest advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on pace right now. I think ideally for me, if I could get to about lap 110, that'd be the absolute ideal situation. If not, just to get to 100, obviously, or 105, that'd be pretty good. Basically, I'm trying to get to the point, fellas, where I can make my last, or I say my last stop, where I could pit at lap, anywhere between 150 and 160, and still have that extra set left. Because as we've seen this league, and as we know with these A7 cars, things get dicey towards the end, right? So if we get to lap 160 and everybody's taking their last set of tires at that point, besides me, we go another 20 laps, get the caution. I am huge. I mean, it's huge. We're talking just a near half second a lap almost probably of just tire advantage. So yeah, that's the strategy there.
I mean, Tyler, are you mostly not concerned, but surprised at the fact that we haven't seen a lot more racing action going on with these guys, knowing that they still have a fast repair to work with?
No, and only because we all know how the tire wear is from last week, right? If we hadn't had that all-star race before this, I would bet you would probably see a bit more diciness. I think once we get past lap 100 here, though, especially as we get to lap 130, 140 or so, it's going to start to get a little bit more intense for a lot of guys in terms of the battling, especially for the lead. I don't know if I'll be that guy right now. Blaine's got about 10 lap fresher tires than me, and then the rest of the field behind Jake there in third's pretty much all pitted. So you may see me drop here, but that's okay. All part of the plan, boys.
Well, we see that the lights are out there atop the pace car. You're going to be going back green here as the race leader. Best of luck to you, Tyler. You've been doing a heck of a job here this evening, and we'll see if your strategy pays off at the end of the night.
All right. Thank you, fellas.
So again, the top 3 cars did not pit. Riggs, who's on about 29 lap old tires. Jake Houndshill, the same number of laps in his tires in third. They're bookending Blaine Akin, who's been out there for only 20 laps on his tires. Guy with the highest, that's got the freshest tires right now, Gerald Campbell in 4th, and Christopher Morse Jr., who was the leader when that caution came out, restarting in 5th. And Blaine Akin, you see right here, I mean, you mentioned this a couple weeks ago at Talladega, Sam. You can get to the inside of a car in a restart as long as you don't pass them before the start-finish line.
Yeah, our biggest winner has to be Blaine Atkins. Biggest loser possibly could be Jeff Green or even Christopher Morris Jr. Those two were battling out. Dallas Whitehead gets spun around in the back.
And he's right in the middle of the track. No oncoming traffic just yet, so no caution thrown as that car came to rest right in the center of turn 2. Still green as the 41 finally leaves the scene.
And now it's going to be side-by-side action where you got Gerald Campbell on the outside of Tyler Riggs. Gerald Campbell, like we noted, fastest car on track because he's got the newest tires on track.
He's going to use the outside line with those fresh tires to swing around Riggs for the lead. Tries to cross over to the inside of Blaine Atkins, who didn't give him a lot of room off of 2. Couldn't make the move down the back straightaway just yet.
Needs at least a little bit more room than that, but that's also going to bring in Houndshell here. Houndshell's on those old tires as well, but Campbell, fresher tires, making the inside line work there, coming out of 4.
Nothing Blaine Akin can do now is, those two getting door to door down the front straightaway. And remember, this isn't your normal 1.5-mile track where it's kind of a straight straightaway. It's that broken D-shaped front straightaway, and sometimes you don't want to be that close to the driver going down there.
No, you really don't. Sometimes you got to back out because you're carrying way too much speed as our top 5. All on top of one another. And then you got to go back to 6 where you got Christopher Morris Jr., who's kind of in an island all by himself, about a second back from 5th place.
A little interesting here, too, because he did come to pit road under that last caution, losing the race lead as a result. I kind of thought he'd be a driver that would charge his way back up to the front, but looks like he's back in tire conservation mode.
I think that's just because he's noticed what Tyler Riggs is doing. I think everyone has to take note of Tyler Riggs running 5th at the moment, watching our top 4 get really racy, and this is closer than I think they want to be. They're not even at the halfway marker, and these guys are right on top of one another.
And let's not forget that the guy right now on pins and needles is at 83 of Jake Houndshill, because he's the only driver in the field up to this point, at least at the front, that we know of has used his fast repair.
Yeah, looking back, it looks like Steinmiller has used the fast repair, and I believe Bo Brady possibly, Bo Brady as well used the fast repair. Only 3, actually take that back. Also, Todd Eldridge has used one. 4 drivers out of the 12 that are running have already used the fast repair.
Jeff Green in the middle, Houndshell behind, Atkin ahead as Green up to the bumper of Blaine Atkin. Fresher tires on that 10 machine. Looks to the inside.
Oh, contact!
Ooh, Blaine Atkin trying to
Blaine into the wall.
but Jeff Green was clearly there.
He was, and that's just a little bit of contact. Luckily, that is a lot of skill that we just saw from that 0-5 to keep it and not absolutely destroying it. In the wall, yes, a little bit of contact there. Blaine is going to come fighting back, though. Yes, he's on the older tires, but willing to fight back on the 10.
And now he's going to probably have to give up the position and have to worry about protecting third, as we've seen those fresh tires really good from the center of the corner off, and that's where Jeff Green's making his speed, firmly at the moment in control of the runner-up position. Now he sets his sights up ahead, trying to catch up to Gerald Campbell for the top position.
Yeah, that's about a half a second difference between the 31 and the 10. And Gerald Campbell feeling confident in the lead at the moment. Blaine Atkin, he has to be feeling at least a little bit better now, as he's leading all the cars that are on the older tires. But we know Blaine Atkins is only really good on those first couple of stints, and then he starts to drop off after a couple of laps.
Right now, Jake Houndshell, Tyler Riggs, those two in 4th and 5th. They are out there now for nearly 40 laps in their tires. Blaine Atkin also stayed out, but he had about 10 laps fresher tires than everybody else because of the fact that he came to pit road about 10 laps later on that Cycle Green Flag pit stops. Battle for the lead is on. Jeff Green with a heck of a run out of turn 2. A lot of speed down the back straightaway, and Campbell says, all right, just take it.
Yeah, just take it. I don't want to utilize my tires too much in this corner by staying side by side. Jeff Green, to the point, leading the way. I think Gerald Campbell's just going to be in cruise control at this point, looking back for that battle for third place. Houndshell think about using the outside line. Thinks better of it, but still on the back bumper of that 0-5. Fastest car, though, that last lap of all the machines running is actually the 3 machine of Christopher Morris Jr., and he's gaining closer and closer to this field up front as Houndshell making the pass for third place.
Might have been waiting for that big group of cars from about 2nd on back through 5th to finally settle themselves out before making forward progress to keep his nose clean. Talking about Christopher Morse Jr., we saw him kind of laying back, maybe just waiting for the storm to settle before he makes his charge back to the front.
Other fast car that's running further back in 7th place, that's Hank Steinmiller, excuse me, in that 63 machine. After using that fast repair, the 63 machine showing some pace, but only problem, 2.5 seconds back from this front pack.
Let's not forget, too, yes, last week was the All-Star race, but if we look back at the first half of this season, Hank Steinmiller comes into this race as the defending winner because he took the checkered flag back at Talladega. So in terms of points-paying race wins, Steinmiller is the one that comes into Charlotte with the momentum.
Yeah, momentum from the regular season. All-Star race momentum goes to Gerald Campbell. And just an update on drivers in the back. Bo Brady has to come in again and realizing, hey, this race might be over for the 9 as parked it in the back.
So he will be the first retiree from this event. We did have another driver that was scheduled to start this race but did not take the green flag. That was Kyle Johnson. So now 11 cars still running, 9 of them currently on the lead lap.
Yeah, 11 of them on, 10 of them on the lead, actually 9 on the lead lap, 11 still running. As Randy Koke in the first car, 1 lap down, hoping for a caution, because the caution flag, if it comes out, would be gifting the 11 to put himself back on the lead lap at the moment.
Battle's going to be for the 4th position. It's right now between 2 cars, might be 3, depending on if this battle settles out sooner rather than later, because you got Christopher Morse Jr. trying to join it. Blaine Atkin, those older tires starting to fall back. And Tyler Riggs, we saw this before too, where Riggs was at about a 15-lap deficit on tires to Atkin back after the first caution on the restart, and we saw Riggs be able to work his way around the 0-5. He's doing the same thing again, this time 10 laps difference on the tires between these two.
That's just the power of a car that's set up for the long run and someone is set up for the short run. As almost contact made between the 26 and the 0-5, they're just on top of one another coming out of turn number 4.
You know, that was a question I was actually going to bring up to you before that second caution came out. Obviously, these drivers it's a fixed setup, so they're not able to make adjustments, so to say, as far as being able to set up what was a short run car for a long run, what was a long run car for a short run. What adjustments can you actually make yourself to make sure that you're able to conserve those tires as opposed to burning them up if you did on the first
contact
car?
the blade again. I mean, the biggest difference is, as Tyler Riggs said, that his car fishtailed there, and you could kind of see that on screen. I mean, in these corners, these drivers are just practically drifting around here, and you don't really know what the back end's going to do at all. But the biggest thing is how you enter these corners. If you enter a little bit higher and not using as much wheel through the corner, you're able to save your tires a lot more than everyone else. Also, how much you're letting your car coast compared to compared to the other drivers. Those are little factors that you can do. Yes, the setups are exactly the same, but your little driving tendencies can affect how much wear and tear your tires go through.
Three-way battle for the lead. Jeff Green, Gerald Campbell, Jake Hounshell. Throw a blanket over him. 2.5 tenths of a second separating these three drivers.
And the more they stay this close and battling one another, the more that it's going to bring in Tyler Riggs, Christopher Morse Jr. Those two machines looking quick. And I got to say, the pressure really is on these three to start pulling away from the 3 machine because he is coming.
Going to have to keep an eye there on Hounshell and Riggs because, as we stated, we thought that probably we were going to see these guys try and shoot for a target lap of making their second pit stop of the day around lap 100. Riggs, as we heard, as we talked to him under the last caution, looking for maybe about lap 110. So we're getting into that window when we're going to see those drivers that decide to stay out under the last caution coming to pit lane.
I'm getting nervous with our top 3. They're right on top of one another, and the longer this run goes on, the more wear and tear is on those tires, and the chance of someone drifting up after hitting the apron, or just their car doesn't stick as well as it used to, and you drifting up that way. As now side-by-side action for second, Gerald Campbell and Hounshell right on top of one another. Jeff Green really not able to pull away just yet.
Yeah, that was close there off of turn 4 as Hounshell's right front got awfully close to Gerald Campbell's left rear. I was getting Blainak and Jeff Green flashbacks from about 15 laps ago.
And Campbell and Hounshell almost making contact, trying to figure out how they want to enter the corner. Hounshell drifting up just a little bit, almost contact, but still running strong there for second place.
And you can see Gerald Campbell on that outside line. He's running a risk here. He's pinching that 83 car down on purpose so he can't get back to the throttle sooner. But if Hounshell's not able to keep his car down on the bottom and he drifts up into Campbell, Campbell's the first one that would go up to the wall.
If anything, this would hurt Hounshell the most. Remember, he's already used fast repair. This is a risky move for him to stay side by side. But the more they stay side by side, the more Jeff Green's not pulling away. It's pulling in the drivers of Tyler Riggs and Christopher Morse Jr., who are all within a second of our leader.
Absolutely. Here comes company with the 26 and the 3, about to make it potentially a 5-car fight for the lead, as right now your top 5 are only separated by a little more than a second.
And Hounshell, I mean, every lap I'm getting more and more concerned as he has to run that white line because Gerald Campbell's pinching so much. And the more and more I'm nervous they're going to make contact just because of the wear and tear that's on these tires, the more you know one of these drivers is going to drift up and get either close to the wall or into the other driver.
Let's not forget, too, Hounshell was one of the drivers that stayed out under that caution. So he's fighting on that inside line on almost 50-lap-old tires as opposed to the 25-lap-old tires that Campbell had, being able to make that outside line work and finally taking and holding back onto that second position.
But the damage has already been made. Hounshell's tires destroyed. Campbell can continue running on for another about 7 laps or so until he's probably thinking about coming into the pits. But it's brought in the 26 as well as the 3 that are excited to be up front and are about to be making these passes for probably for the lead passes here. I mean, just looking at the tire, I mean, at the pace that's being put down, I mean, the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. is blistering quick compared to our top 3.
He's been the fastest car the last 10 laps, and a number of those laps are running by himself, starting to reel in Tyler Riggs, and eventually both he and Riggs reeled in the top 3. So just single car speed, hardly any draft coming into play and Morse Jr. still up there at the top as far as fastest speed, so he's definitely got a very fast machine underneath him, and now he's got 4 positions up ahead. He'll start picking them off one by one. We'll see how long it takes him to get up to the front where he was at prior to our second caution coming out.
And we're now about 6 laps away from seeing some of these drivers think about pitting, and I think the first one is going to be Cocaine coming in now, who is already 1 lap down in the 11 machine. Starting off this pit road sequence for these drivers. The window's been opened. Houndshell almost running into the 31 of Gerald Campbell there, and here comes Tyler Riggs down the 26. He's trying to find an opening, how to get under this 83 machine.
Wouldn't be surprised if Houndshell may be one of the first drivers up at the front that comes to pit road, as he almost drifted up into the wall off of turn 2 last time around, and you see him drifting up off the corner again here, getting a little close to that yellow outside safer barrier as he's trying to hold off Tyler Riggs, who clearly up to this point has done the best of saving his tires between those two. But again, Houndshell was in that really dogged battle with Gerald Campbell for second place for a number of laps.
Yeah, the dogfight was huge, and that's what we're seeing the difference now is the 83 machine giving a little bit of space to Tyler Riggs, and we'll see if Tyler Riggs can hold that bottom line as he's being pinched now on the inside line.
And now Christopher Morse Jr. finds himself boxed in as Houndshell got a little loose on the top side coming off of turn 2. Now it's going to be Morse able to get around him for the 4th position. So right now for Christopher Morse Jr. might be more of a case of passing cars when they make a mistake rather than actually sticking his nose in there to take the position away.
Yeah, it helps when you have something called a battering ram in front of you of Tyler Riggs that's just making a point and a charge for you to move cars out of the way. As Christopher Morse Jr. really looks like he's in kind of a cruise control moment where he's just following the 26. And if he feels like the 26 isn't going to be making those passes as quick as he wants, then he'll be moving the 26 out of the way.
Jeff Green continues to show the way right now, about 2/10 over Gerald Campbell, who has not let that C2 Chevrolet get away from him and actually closed the gap up a little bit more there off of turn 4. We saw Seth Harrelson, the 07, coming to pit road right around the mark that a number of other drivers we expected to see on pit lane. But I'm looking at some of these guys like Green and Campbell, Christopher Morse Jr. We're probably going to see Riggs and Houndshell pitting in the next 2 laps or so. But the rest of these other guys, we may see them stretch it another 20 laps or so.
Yeah, we're expecting just base of tire wear to see the fact that Riggs and Houndshell will come in first. Then it should be Atkin, and then the rest of the field will come in about 10 to 15 laps after Atkin does. So the window is going to be pretty huge for these drivers, probably for both the 83 and the 26 here in the next, pretty much any lap for here in the next 5 laps. We'll be seeing those 2 drivers make their move as the 3 gets by Riggs.
So move the 3 to P3 as Morse Jr. back up into the podium. You mentioned Blaine Atkin. Let's follow up on him as we saw him really drifting back. He's now at the 6th position, currently running about 4 seconds back from the race leader as Houndshell is in, Riggs is in. This is about the time we expected to see these 2 on pit road.
Yeah, to lap number 100, coming to 11. This is exactly what Riggs told us. That's what he was shooting for, and now he's going to have an extra set if things keep on going the way they are. Really setting up just in case we have that late caution compared to the other drivers that are kind of in they have to pit, and they might be out of, tires later on in this run.
Gerald Campbell getting around the outside of Jeff Green, so that 31 really has been the guy that has been willing to try that second groove and has made quite a few really good passes on that outside line. It might be something he's going to put in the back of his mind here for later on in the race when everybody's trying to hug that white line maybe for a late race restart. 31 may be the one we see jumping up to the top.
But our top 3 all on the same window of fuel and tires. And here comes the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. He is right there. He's caught up to our front 2. And he's been running about a 10th to anywhere from a 10th to about 2/10 faster than the guys in front of him for the past about 15, almost 20 laps now. So would not be surprised to see once we see the 3 finally get the back bumper of Jeff Green just to move him out of the way and just try to get to the lead as quick as possible before pit stops begin.
One thing with these 87 cars that I love to watch with our in-car cameras, watch the hands down there on the bottom left of Christopher Morse Jr. You can tell when a car is handling good. Look, there's very little movement there on the steering wheel. A lot of other drivers that we watch, we see those hands jerk back to the right, trying to save the race car as the loose end is coming around. So right now, Christopher Morse Jr. seems very happy with how his car is handling, and we see as this day has waned on, those shadows starting to creep into turn one.
Yellow flag! It's going to be Blaine Atkin actually wrecking it in the 0-5, and it looked like it possibly he just ran out of space, almost hooking the 63 of Steinmiller, which would have been awful for Steinmiller, who has already used fast repair.
Looks like that was right in the first crook of the broken front straightaway. And Blaine Atkin, who was already struggling on older tires, that may possibly be a fast repair for him. Looks like a lot of the contact was to the right front.
Also looked like there might have been contact made between the 0-5 and also the 63 of Coking. I think Coking actually was able to evade and not make contact, but almost, as that 46 already had previous damage.
This was a battle at the time, I believe, for the 5th position between Blaine Atkin and Hank Steinmiller. Steinmiller was on fresher tires as he had come to pit road under the last caution, being the recipient of the free pass. So a huge difference between the tires of these two drivers. And again, it's that center of the corner off that we see the 63 get the bigger run. And wow, Blaine Atkin, this reminds me an awful lot of what we were just talking about back when we got into that longer run before the second caution about drivers in the All-Star race and the All-Star Open not being able to turn off the corner with those older tires. That car just went straight.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that he got a car under him of Steinmiller, and then it just, he could not get woed up enough before just going clobbering that wall. The biggest thing with this caution and when it came out, Tyler Riggs and both Jake Hounshell were both one lap down, and only Tyler Riggs got the lucky dog.
Wow, that is huge. Great point as the timing of this caution, a big break for Tyler Riggs, but Hounshell, again, with the fact that this is 1987 rules, there are no waiver rounds, so Hounshell's going to have to rely on another caution to come out before he can get back on the lead lap. Now, we're going to actually go on board here with Blaine Atkin going through this corner, and one thing that I noticed, it looked like there might have been just a slight bit of contact, like maybe a bump from Steinmiller to the back of Blaine Atkin. Could that little bit of a bump have forced the 0-5 to be going a little faster out of the exit of the corner than he wanted to?
Yeah, that little bump is something that is massive because these drivers, they're always racing on the edge. I mean, we saw there on previous shots of how much they're wheeling it through these corners. Just one simple bump could actually cause you to spin out or be absolutely shunted into the outside wall like we saw there.
Looking at the 0-5 of Blaine Atkin as he's coming off of pit road, and I believe he can be added to the list of drivers that have used a fast repair. That right front looks like it is brand new.
Yeah, it is completely brand new, which then adds him to the list of the 0-5, now on the list of the 83, 96, the 11, as well as the 63 that have used fast repairs. So a lot of these machines already set up for the end, and hoping that they don't get caught up in a late incident that would really cost their race moving forward.
Well, Tyler Riggs, our in-car reporter, said that around maybe laps 135, 140, somewhere in that range is where we're going to see drivers really force the issues and the aggressiveness ramp up. He, as you mentioned, getting the free pass here under this caution, putting him back on the lead lap. Let's actually get a word with him here.
Right, pit lap one.
Oh, Tyler, sorry to interrupt you there in the middle of team communications, but with the timing of this caution, you get the free pass. This caution obviously kind of foiling maybe your strategy just the least little bit, but how's it been going for you now, knowing that we're closing in into the point of the race where you were talking about where we're probably going to see the aggressiveness kick up on these restarts?
Honestly, this caution didn't foil anything for me. Still on pace simply because, guys, now I'm at that spot. I got to the sweet spot where I want to be. Got two sets of tires. If I pit at lap 160, whether it's green or caution, whatever. Obviously, if we get a caution close at this point, where we get one anywhere from lap 150 onward, I'm pitting, taking my tires. But there's a really good chance at this point I'm going to have an extra set on everybody, and that's huge, guys. Because if we get that caution with, if we go lap 150, get a caution, we go 20 laps, get another caution. Nobody's going to be able to come in except me and take more tires. So I'm really liking where I'm at, and with only 8 cars on the lead lap as is, I could be aggressive on this restart and get up there with the leaders and not have to worry about really burning up my tires.
Yeah, Tyler, I mean, it's a huge run. Just want to give you a little bit of knowledge out there. It looks like the 3 machine is on the similar strategy as you. So it might feel like you're the only one out there, but just be aware as the 3 actually dumping it in. I think he might have missed his pit stall coming in back again.
Well, funnily enough, he had said after that first round, fellas, he's like, well, I just saw Tyler, do this with pace. Because I kind of shocked myself having enough to stay up there decently with the leaders. It looks like Chris finally bowed to it and pitted, but yeah, it's it's tough choices. Another thing, guys, is this track's really cooled down, so I think that helped a lot with being on old tires but still having pace. So you could expect myself and maybe a couple other guys to push it a bit harder on this run because with the the temp drop like this. I mean, it really affords you a lot more to work with in terms of trying to push it.
One thing, Tyler, we've been doing is accumulating the list here of the drivers up to this point that have been using their fast repairs. A number of the fast cars up there at the front, including the 63, the 05, the 83. We've added them to that list. So, based on the fact now that the strategy continuing to work out for you, is it worth trying to be aggressive here at this point in time, knowing that you've got a fast repair advantage on some of those guys?
It's worth it just off the tire situation itself. So yeah, either way on that, you look at it. I'm definitely going to try to get after it a bit on this restart.
All right, well, we're going to let you get back to it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of track temp for Tyler Riggs, what he was talking about, the track temp went at one point, it was close to 130 Fahrenheit for track temp, and it's dropped all the way down to 106 degrees. Still screeching hot, but a lot nicer to work with for these drivers up front.
Gerald Campbell, the race leader, leads the field into turn 1. Hank Steinmiller was to drivers left on Jeff Green just about the time they got to the start-finish line. He's now up to second. Atkin moving to third. Green falls back into the 4th position. And then you've got the lap machine of Seth Harrelson. Remember, the lap machines intermingle with the lead lap cars per 87 rules.
And the battle for the lead now underway. Here comes Steinmiller at one point, looking like a driver that's going to go a lap down. It was 1 lap down at one point, got his lap back, and now up here leading the point. But here comes Blaine Atkin. That 05 we know is so quick for the first about 10 to 15 laps.
Remember, he has used a fast repair, as has Steinmiller. So right now, your top 2 cannot afford to be involved in another wreck because they've got nothing to fall back on getting a brand new race car. Jeff Green kind of got caught napping there on the initial green flag to restart this race. He's been able to fight his way now back up to 3rd.
And now these drivers up front, they're going to be battling as hard as they can. But like you said, got to be careful with those machines that have already used their fast repairs. And honestly, we're past the halfway marker. This is when the intensity level is going to crank up. And we're about to see the same racing that we saw for that All-Star race where the drivers were just wheeling and dealing, trying to be up front as fast and as quick as possible. As Blaine Atkins makes a move to the lead and makes it work.
Going to slide up in front of Steinmiller and take the top position back. When we were talking with Tyler Riggs, he mentioned how that caution coming out did not in any way affect his strategy. The last 2 cautions that it has affected has probably had to have been the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. The second caution of the night, it was in the middle of green flag pit stops, and Christopher Morse Jr. had to come to pit road under that yellow, dropping from the race lead down to 5th. And as you mentioned when we were talking to Tyler there under this caution, missing his pit stall, restarting him all the way back in 7th.
Probably the biggest disadvantage that 3 machine could have asked for was missing his pit stall, and it's so hard to look at. Looking at other drivers that would have pitted multiple times, Gerald Campbell has come in 4 times. The biggest difference, though, was that one of those pit stops, he only went with 2 tire stop compared to everyone else going for 4.
Interesting, because we've saw a lot of drivers try 2 tire strategies in the All-Star race, and Campbell, of course, won the All-Star race, so maybe trying a little bit here. And I gotta wonder, too, I mean, is there going to be a point, you talked about the track conditions getting cooler, it may get to a point as we get closer to the end of this race where the track temperature might go down somewhat similar to what these drivers were experiencing on All-Star Race night.
Yeah, it's past noon on track temp, so it's just going to start. It's actually a little bit past 4 on a track temp, so it's just going to get cooler and cooler as the day goes on by. So expecting the track temp to possibly get cooler as the race goes on, and possibly could be less than 100 degrees track temp by the end of this race on how the track has been evolving throughout this run, as Jeff Green still just hounding up that back bumper of the 05 and just putting on so much pressure. I'm surprised to see that that Steinmiller has been moving forward as much as I thought he would.
Yeah, Steinmiller has fallen back, now trying to battle for third place with Gerald Campbell. We've actually got 2 battles going on here in this group of 4. The 63 and the 31 are battling for third. The 07 of Harlson right now is in the free pass position. The 83, the black and green Jay Counshell machine, trying to take that free pass position here as he drives it deep there into 3 and 4.
Here's the thing, they're both looking for a caution so they can get that lucky dog position, but they cannot be involved in the accident that brings out a caution, or they will not be given that lucky dog position. So it's a tricky thing. You don't want to wreck the car in front of you to bring up that caution that you drastically need.
Both of these drivers got trapped a lap down after they came down, made regular green flag pit stops, but the timing of our third caution trapped them both off the lead lap, and Tyler Riggs was the only one to get the free pass under that third yellow flag. So both these drivers having to try and work hard here to get up first car 1 lap down. As you mentioned, they need to hope that a caution flag comes out to save them and get them that lucky dog position.
I'd say Dallas Mayan as well. Love to see that caution. He's used to running back and around 9th, 8th position before the caution came out. Since then, still in the green, still in the lead lap, running 6th, and running a little bit quicker than what our leader has been running at the moment. That 41, someone to watch out for later in this run.
Hey, we haven't really mentioned Dallas's name here tonight that much, and he's running really well in the point stands. He's second in points coming into tonight's race, has had a tremendous first half of the regular season. So it's just kind of one of those things where Dallas always kind of seems to be waiting in the wings until the closing stage of the race. Could be planning to do the same thing here. Obviously, it's not been without some incident because he's got a little bit of a ruffle on the rear bumper of his 41 machine, but as far as we know on our list, still has that fast repair should he need it, as this battle for the lead is not going away. Jeff Green trying that second groove to get a run out of turn 4 on Blaine Atkin.
Yeah, Jeff Green's trying everything he can, and he's got enough space to where he can start making these rooms just because of Steinmiller are not really showing any pressure. So trying to make this outside line work, and with the shade being on the entry of that corner number 1, it's helping a ton for these drivers to make bold moves that they really weren't able to make earlier on in this race. Is now on the inside, it's Jeff Green.
He's going to cross Atkin over, and he's going to have the preferred line going into turn 3. Drifts it up just the least little bit to the driver's side door of Blaine Atkin. Atkin trying to pinch him down. They'll remain side by side to the start-finish line. Give Atkin the advantage by half a car length at the stripe.
And just the outside line is so good if it's on the entry of the corner where you really can build a lot of momentum, and that's what Green's trying to do here, clearing the 05 and able to keep the lead for now. Blaine Atkin thinking about where he needs to place his car here entering turn number 3.
Tried to cross Green over out of turn 2, but Green was able to hold him at bay for the moment. Atkin now drives it deep into 3 and 4 again. Remember, at this point for these two, there is no difference in tires. They are on the same lap number of tires, and as these guys are battling, it's actually bringing Hank Steinmiller and Gerald Campbell back into the conversation.
Yeah, Steinmiller now about to be charged, though, by Houndshell, and I think right now it's the best time for Steinmiller just to let Houndshell go. He's a lap machine. Let him do his thing.
He put that out of shape out of 2. That was close.
Oh, they're still kind of out of shape, but Atkin able to hold it coming into entry number 3.
It's hard to tell if there might have been contact between Jeff Green and Atkin to the right rear of the 05, or if he just got loose off the corner by himself, but man, he was fishtailing for about half the back straightaway.
It looked like there might have been a little bit of contact there between the 10 and the 05 that pushed him to the inside, but yeah, scary moves out there up front.
And don't forget, Blaine Atkin already has used his fast repair, so if he had clobbered either the outside or the inside wall there down the back straightaway, that would have effectively been his race over. Looks like Steinmiller, to your point, has let Houndshill go by. Houndshill right now, the car in the free pass position should we get a caution, but I think what Houndshill's trying to do right now, just in case a caution doesn't come out to save him, he's trying to get up there and get his lap back the hard way.
Update on cars that are running further in the back. It looks like Todd Eldridge had to pull that 96 machine into the pits. Already used the fast repair hard contact in the front stretch for that 96 about 3 laps ago.
Right now, the last car running on track in the 11th position just fell 3 laps down and may lose another lap here, still on pit road, as this is a 3-car battle, but only 2 cars battling for the lead. Akin and Green, the 05 and 10. Houndshell in the 83, trying to get himself back on the lead lap right now. First car 1 lap down.
Doing it the hard way, and sometimes that's what you have to do, and then hope for a caution after you get by these guys. This Houndshell pushing up Green to the outside, and I think Steinmiller and also Campbell loving to see this action, because the more they're side by side, the more that's wearing down Green's tires.
I'm also going to say this right now. These guys do not want that 83 back on the lead lap, because he is doing this on about 5 lap older tires than the drivers he's racing around.
Also, I mean, you also got to think Blaine Atkins, he's dropped off on speed. Green was just battling side by side. He's worn down those tires. Houndshell's probably one of the few, as well as Steinmiller and Campbell, that haven't really utilized those tires as much as the cars in front. Now we're seeing what this 83 has compared to the tires that have been starting to get worn down a little bit more in front of them.
What was it that Tyler Riggs told us about lap 135? We'd start to see the racing ramp up. Well, for a brief moment there, through 1 and 2, we had 2 rows of side-by-side racing.
Yeah, that's nerve-wracking racing to see. As those drivers, he had 1 lap machine of Houndshell, and Houndshell, he's 1 position away from unlapping himself, and here he comes on the inside.
Blaine Akin looks like he's going to maybe let him go. A little contact there. What Akin had to do was he had to try and see if he could let the 83 by without allowing Jeff Green to stick his nose in, but he was unsuccessful.
Yeah, might have let off just a little bit, but if he didn't let off, that 83 was going to drift up into the 05. So had to do what he needed to do to save that car. Now it's more of survival for these drivers, as we're still 1 pit stop away from making this thing to the end.
And here comes our All-Star Race winner, Gerald Campbell now. He's going to jump up to that second groove. We've seen him make it work before here multiple times tonight. He's trying to get alongside the right rear of Blaine Akin off of 2. Can't quite do it.
He's going to use a crossover move down the backstretch, finding that he's got the momentum to come, and nope, decides to back out of it, deciding, hey, let's not risk it just yet, as we're still so close to one another.
Christopher Morse Jr. in that 3 car, running behind Tyler Riggs. Right now, Riggs in 5th, still running his own strategy. Christopher Morse Jr. trying to fight his way back through the field after starting towards the rear because of missing his pit stall on the last caution. Right now, he is currently running about 1.3 seconds behind the race leader. I mean, that's actually pretty close if you consider the fact that the top 7, all drivers on the lead lap, are separated by only 2 seconds.
Yeah, they're all single filed up, and this is when you start to feel a little bit nervous for our front runners, because you're all this close to one another. Houndshell, he's happy that he's up front in front of our leader, but he's going to have pressure throughout this whole entire run, as Jeff Green's going to try to pull away from the rest of the field, but he's going to ask you for Houndshell to continue driving as quick as he has been.
When do these drivers consider making their final pit stop of the day? We heard Tyler Riggs say around lap 160. Is anybody going to pit earlier than that? Is anybody going to pit later than that? Those pit stops are going to be coming up somewhere in the next 20 to 30 laps as Jeff Green paces the field here tonight in the World 300. We may be in for a wild final 50 laps, so we're going to step away for our final commercial break. Then we'll be taking you to the checker flag here tonight at Charlotte. You won't miss a thing. We're going to go Flatout Racing Network side by side.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the veterans of foreign wars and fights for the veterans community.
Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
We welcome you back here as we're getting ready to bring the curtain down here tonight on the World 300 at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the G4 Sim Racing Series, the Hijinx Clothing Company 87 Series, as you were treated during that side-by-side to some unbelievable racing up here at the front. Your top three, Jeff Green, Blaine Ack, and Gerald Campbell. I mean, we were pretty close to almost having our fourth caution of the night, as we almost had some contact between Green and Akin on the front straightaway again.
Yeah, Green and Akin, we've seen earlier this race having contact maybe between themselves, but I think Green at this moment just wants to get by Houndshell, but can't figure out a space too until now.
Ooh, almost pushes up the track there, heading for turn one. And the problem for Jeff Green is the fact that he's not able to go up to the wall and arc it down the corner like we've seen him be able to do in earlier runs here. He's pinched down there. He's having to lift a lot earlier, heading for that inside line via the inside line in the corner. If he were able to get himself a nice arc and have the inside line open, he'd probably be able to get around that 83 quicker because of the fact that he's got about 5-6 lap fresher tires than Houndshell does.
Yeah, as we're seeing them still side by side, here goes Blaine Akin almost getting into the grass, and these drivers have to be careful not to really touch the grass or it's going to throw you off course. Other machines that I'm watching trying to make some moves. The 3 machine now able to get by the 07, get by the lap machine, but Jeff Green now had a Houndshell, and now he's got a little bit of buffer between himself and second place.
Now Tyler Riggs, hounding 63 for that 4th position.
Houndshell almost got back to the throttle just a little bit quicker than he was expecting the 10 to, almost running over our leader.
Right now, Jake Houndshell has one agenda, and that's to get himself back on the lead lap, whether it be having the caution come out, which would give him the free pass, or getting back on the lead lap the hard way. He was out in front of the leaders for a good portion of this run, but now finds himself back a lap down behind Jeff Green, and things have stacked up from the lead all the way back to this 6th position, as it's now side-by-side for 4th between Riggs and Steinmiller.
And Steinmiller trying to stay and get in front of Riggs, and I think he might be able to get it. Following Steinmiller is going to be the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr., that machine is ready to start moving now, and we know the 3 of Morse Jr. has a fast machine. It's just pit road was the reason why he's stuck back here in the back.
Well, this race was 200 laps, and we have now made it past the 3-quarter mark. We're now into the final 50 laps of this race. We know that just about everybody is going to be back on pit road again. Everybody's been on different strategies. Drivers have been saving a set of tires for later on in this race. Be interesting to see if that's going to play out the way they have planned. Who is going to pit? When are they going to pit? Have we seen our last caution of the night? All those questions going to be answered in about 49 laps.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Riggs already notified us. Lap 160 is around the marker that he's looking for, and then he'll come into the pits, and he's the driver that's on the oldest tires on the track at the moment as he's being passed by the 3 machine on the outside. Tyler Riggs is someone that is really the benchmark. After we see that 26 come into the pits, when will we see everyone else come in? Because he's going to have an extra set compared to everyone else that only has one. This last set that they're going to be pitting for is their last set.
Jake Cownshell trying to get his lap back again here on Jeff Green, forcing Green to the outside line. Blaine Atkin right there. What does he do? Oh, he thought about looking 3 wide. Now Campbell, I think, literally into the back of him down the back straightaway.
And Campbell's been known to using that bumper. Touches the 0-5 again. As they're coming up on the Houndshell, they're just drifting higher and higher. Blaine Atkins is not liking this action. As there goes a 3 on the outside, he's already passed 2 drivers.
And Blaine Atkin now has to look to his driver's right as Christopher Morse Jr. in that second groove has worked from 5th, now up to 3rd, now looking to take 2nd around the outside line and will do so.
Almost 3 wide there. Gerald Campbell trying to figure out how to drift back and really get back into his momentum because he has lost a lot of positions and a lot of time so far. It's also Blaine Atkin in that 0-5 losing time. And this is around the time that we were starting to see that 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. making his move last time on that last long stint we were on. And here he comes, about 35 laps into these tires.
You know a driver is struggling when he's turning that wheel more to the right than he is the left, going into a left-hand corner as, whoo, close call there. Tyler Riggs just barely tucking in line ahead of the 0-5 off the corner, and here's the battle for the lead.
Battle for the lead, and Houndshell also digging it pretty deep, trying to make sure that he could stay up front with these drivers, but with Christopher Morse Jr. now trying to make that inside line work, I believe he's going to take this lead easily. He's got about take the back 3 lap newer tires, but I mean, with how long these drivers have been running, I mean, I would say the 3 has the freshest tires of everyone up here.
Well, change that now because Blaine Atkin just brought his 0-5 to pit road, so I'm smoking those front tires on the brakes, making sure he got down to pit road speed, and the cycle of green flag pit stops, potentially the final cycle of green flag pit stops taking place.
I feel like that's way too soon for the 0-5, but he was losing a lot of ground once drifting on back, so he felt like he had to come in. As Green looks like he got into the wall, came down, almost blocked the 26, and that was also some contact being made as Green still being aggressive on the outside.
Getting right down there on the right front quarter panel of Gerald Campbell, and that was close there through 1 and 2. I thought that if Green didn't wreck himself in the wall, he was going to wreck himself off the nose of Campbell.
Tyler Riggs last week during the All-Star race had the cleanest car, one of the freshest tires, but it was caught up in a late accident that possibly would have given him a top 3 finish. Right now, look to the strategy board, thought, hey, I can really push my tires this far and have an extra set at the end. No one else tried the same strategy as Tyler Riggs. He's on the oldest tires out here and is running 2nd, and slowly but surely looks like he's gaining time on our leader.
That's what's been the most impressive thing here with Tyler Riggs, because if we, based off of the notes we had from the All-Star race last week, if we looked at somebody that was out there on 10 to 15 lap older tires, we would have written them off. We would have said, you know what, they're going to drop from wherever they are, maybe 6-7 spots here in the next 10 laps or so. Riggs has not been that driver tonight. He has been on a tire deficit to everyone around him all night long and has been able not only to stay up in the lead pack, but that car for the most part has been up in the top 5 all evening long.
And it's been doing a fantastic job. Now you got to drift back to 3rd place where you've got a lot of hungry machines all around each other. You've got the 31, the 10, and the 63. Here's the thing, though. The 63 has already used the fast repair. The other 2 have not. So if contact's made, it's going to hurt the 63 the most out of all those drivers.
Campbell drifted up off of 4, opened the door for Jeff Green to stick his nose in there. They're going to take it side by side for 3rd into turn 1. Steinmiller waiting to see what happens as Green
pushes up.
Still pushes up, puts Campbell all the way up to the 3rd groove coming off of turn 2. 3 wide down the back straightaway.
And there's still 3 wide coming into turn number 3 as it looks like Steinmiller thinks better of it. Drifts on back. A very smart move as you see now the 31 coming back on the outside.
Campbell trying to pinch Jeff Green down. Green not quite clear off of 4 as Campbell gets a little loose off the final corner. They continue side by side. Steinmiller getting a heck of a show ahead of him, but at the same time, might be just a tick quicker than the both of them and isn't able to find his way around, kind of boxed in.
Trying to make that inside line work, going to be able to try to clear himself from Campbell, who Campbell has just been loose off of every single corner we've seen. Green going a little bit higher than expected, but here comes Steinmiller with that huge run through the center of the corner. Here comes the 63, trying to make a move for 3rd place.
And Steinmiller on the back bumper of Green down the front straightaway, not able to get to the inside just yet as Campbell is on pit road, and I was actually wondering, oh, he just hit the pit wall.
Came in way too quick and actually spun out of four. Missed pit road, hit the cone, and it almost hit the inside wall. Actually did hit it with his rear bumper.
Got it pretty good there. Maybe with the right front as well, it looked like when we
I think he
panned
just
back to
missed
him.
it.
I mean, while that may not really affect him in terms of the damage sustained, that is definitely going to affect him in terms of time lost on pit road.
Definitely, it's going to be a lot of time lost, and we'll see. I'm going to take a quick look to see if 31 did use his fast repair, because he did have some damage entering in. He has used his fast repair. So another driver already using their fast repair, getting back out there on course, is the 31.
But caution has not been able to save Jake Hounshell yet. He's
Oh,
now
no.
pit road.
Speeding penalty for the 31. He has to stay in pit road longer than he wants. Here comes Houndshell.
And here comes Christopher Morse Jr. now onto pit road from the race lead. This is interesting because Tyler Riggs gave us the target lap about 160. He's still out there. He inherits the lead.
I think he's realizing, hey, if I stay out here, a caution comes out, I'm going to have a two tire set advantage over everyone else.
Jeff Green, he overshot his pit stall, having to back it up, and now we're starting to see drivers on the money stop, if you will, making these mental mistakes as now Riggs brings his 26 to pit road. Steinmiller right behind him, almost ran into the back of him as he came in hot.
Came in hot, looking, it looks like the cleanest driver to come into his pit stall is Christopher Morris Jr. in the 3. Came in perfectly, got out perfectly.
That's going to now turn the race lead over. Well, I thought it was going to turn the race lead over to Dallas Myhand in the 41, but he's now going to come to pit lane. And the driver that began this round of pit stops, Blaine Atkin, looks like he may be the one to cycle around to the race lead. He's going to have about 7-lap older tires than drivers that are going to be around him. We'll see how that plays out here in these final 35 laps.
Bold move by Jeff Green, decided to go with the 2-tire stop for himself in the 10 machine, leaving himself with at least another half a set to work with if we have a late caution.
And I would have to assume that at this point in time, maybe, just maybe, quite a number of drivers that have not used their fast repair yet might have used this green flag pit stop to maybe make their fast repair now.
Yeah, looking at drivers that still have their fast repairs and saving it for later on. That's going to be Dallas Myhand. Tyler Riggs still has one. I believe Green still has one as well. We know that the 3 as well has one. And the 07 has his still left. I'm looking to see, and the 31 machine, still in pit road. Something has happened for the 31 machine to leaving him still on the pit road for over 3 minutes now.
Gerald Campbell was trying to go for the Charlotte sweep after winning the All-Star race last week, trying to win here tonight in the World 300. Looks like that will not happen as he's currently 4 laps down in the 9th position. Everybody has been on pit road, completing this cycle of pit stops. This is either now the race to the checkers or the race to the next caution. We don't know which one just yet.
I would say if this is a race to the checkers, I would give the advantage to Jeff Green at this point, or to Morris, because both those drivers have been extremely quick at the end of the runs, and Atkins is only usually good for the first 10 to 15 laps, and he's coming closer and closer to that moment where his tires are going to be so much worn than everyone else, and he's going to start dropping off.
I might be wrong, but I think you might be able to add the 10 of Jeff Green to that list of drivers that used a fast repair, because I remember prior to him coming to pit road, he had some damage on the left front of his Chevrolet. Looks like that is gone, so I think he might have used a fast repair on that green flag pit stop.
Going to take a quick look here for Jeff Green and see if he did use a fast repair or not into this last pit stop for himself.
And he's caught Blaine Atkin for the top position already. And if Jeff Green can get around Blaine Atkin as quickly as he caught him, he's going to be pulling away here very quickly.
Now it looks like they actually got a little bit of repairs done while doing a 2-stopper. Does not use a fast repair just yet for the 10.
So now Jeff Green, the car that he's going to be looking back and hoping not to see is that gold number 3 of Christopher Morse Jr., who right now is in the 3rd position, trying to get around Blaine Atkin and set his sights on Jeff Green's number 10.
Jeff Green really is, he needs to just start pulling away because you cannot rely on the 0-5 as he gets passed now by the 3. At this point, everyone that's running up front, they're kind of hoping that we go Green to the end because Tyler Riggs, the biggest advantage right now, or Jeff Green with his half a set still left.
We nearly just had ourselves a caution right there as Seth Harrelson got the wall off of turn 2. Car slid down towards the apron of the back straightaway, but kept it straight. Remember, we saw earlier there was a battle between himself and Jake Hounshell for the lucky dog position. Hounshell was able to take it and actually fight his way up to the front of the field to get back in the tail end of the lead lap. Harrelson now again is in the free pass spot. The main reason for that being that Jake Hounshell, along that run at some point, you can see it here, got more damage to the right side of his 83, and he's already used his fast repair.
Yeah, made hard contact with the outside wall. I think that was when he was thinking about coming into the pits for that 83 machine, about a lap or so before he came in. So hard contact. And luckily it's on the side and not the front, but still drastic damage that could be hurting this 83 the longer this run goes on.
Still 29 laps to go. A long ways yet in this race. That last time by, laps were very similar between Jeff Green and Christopher Morris Jr. Maybe a tick quicker was the 10 machine, and that's what he's got to do right now. At least just manage what is an 0.8 of a second gap between himself and Christopher Morris Jr., who has proved that his car seems to get a little bit better the longer the run goes on.
The longer the run goes on, like you said, the closer we got to see. But it was around the time that these drivers were on about 35-lap old tires when the 3 would start to close in a lot more. Will we see Christopher Morris Jr. close in that gap closer than we thought? Another machine deciding it's time to park it. The 31 of Gerald Campbell out for the race.
Tough break there for Gerald Campbell, who got hit with that speeding penalty and, of course, also got some damage there, spinning the car, well, nearly spinning the car onto pit road. As we're on board with Christopher Morris Jr., you can visibly see the gap between himself and Jeff Green is closing up lap by lap.
Yeah, that last time by, a huge gain of almost 0.2 of a second, between the 3 and the 10. And it's closing in quick, and Jeff Green might have used up all of his stuff too soon. A driver that I've got my eye on, but I think it might be too far back, is Tyler Riggs, as he is now closing on Blaine Atkin, but is about 3.2 seconds back from our leaders.
Tyler Riggs, probably the one guy right now, at least up inside of the top 5, that would love to see a caution, because as mentioned, he's got himself a set of tires available to him should he want them. And we've seen what the fresh tires can do, especially on these restarts, as right now he is running about half a second faster than the car ahead of him, that being the 0-5 of Blaine Atkin. Battle for third is on in turn 3.
The best time for Tyler Riggs would probably be, 20 laps to go, with caution to come out, for him to get that new set in. You'd have enough time to pass everyone and get back up front. Anything past that, it's going to be a little bit too much for this 26 to get by all these drivers, as now he's getting by Blaine Atkin at the moment, entering turn number 1 and out of 2.
Well, I'm telling you what, though, as he was battling with Blaine Atkin, reeling him in and now passing him, he's actually running lap times faster than the top 2. So I guess never say die with this 26, because even though 2.5 seconds is a lot to make up, there's still 25 laps to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to ask for. He's running about 1/10, sometimes 2/10 faster than our leaders. So right now, Tyler Riggs is slowly running our front 2 down, and at the pace they're going to go. And if they start battling side by side, the closer Tyler Riggs will get up to these guys.
And I would expect that we are going to see some side-by-side battling here, because Jeff Green has proved all race. He's kind of been the Ryan Newman here tonight. If you're going to pass him, you've got to work for it. Green has been a very tough Chevrolet to pass for position here this evening at Charlotte.
But you know Christopher Morris Jr. has the pace to get by if needed. It's more of waiting until Green has used up too much of his tires. Then Morris will start making that move within the last 15 laps. But until then, it's kind of in a cruise control moment, letting him wear down those tires the more that this goes on.
And we've seen Christopher
Whoa! Blaine Atkins gets onto the wall out of 2 and almost spins his car around.
Keeps it together, though. A lot more damage on the right side of his machine. And remember, he's another driver that's already used a fast repair. So any damage he sustains from here on out is going to have to be repaired by his crew manually. He cannot rely on a quick repair here anymore in this race. But going back real quickly to Christopher Morse Jr., one thing that we saw him do on the long run that allowed him to be able to work his way up to the lead not once but twice is the utilization of that second groove. So you got to think it's only going to be a matter of time with Green continuing to try and hold the bottom that Christopher Morse Jr., if he's able to get a run on that 10, he's going to venture up a little bit higher in the corners.
We're getting closer and closer to the sun setting. It won't set before this race is over, but with it getting lower and lower and the shade coming more and more on the track because of all the signs, we are now lower than 100 degrees on the track temp. 98 degrees for these tires for this track temp. The tires are cool, they're ready to go, and they're putting down some quick, fast laps as Christopher Morse Jr. thought about ducking it in, entering 3.
These drivers have been out there now for 180 laps, 20 laps still to go. It's been a long race for these drivers already, and you're starting to see maybe a little bit of mental mistakes. That last time by through turns 1 and 2, Green got his left side. It's a little too low right down there on that white line. There's a little bit of paint grip down there, which forces the car to shoot up the track. That opened the door for a brief moment for Morse to take a look, and that might be what Morse is doing right now, just waiting until the 10 makes a mistake and then pounce and capitalize.
Yeah, it's really what he's waiting for as well. Tyler Riggs making a couple of mistakes those last couple of laps, losing time on our front 2, and what was looking like just possibly, if he continued on the pace he was going, could have caught up to our leaders. It looks like it's now out of his grasp, needing a caution if he wants to push for a win.
And you mentioned this earlier, but I just want to reiterate this for everybody. Jeff Green, Christopher Morse Jr. on pit road the same lap. However, Green only took 2 tires. Morse took 4. So there is actually a difference in the amount of grip these drivers are experiencing going into the corner.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to Green for still running up front as hard as he has been with just 2 fresh tires on that machine. It's going to be hard running it to the end here, hoping that his tires don't pop. Instead, Todd Eldridge wrecks in front of him.
Down on the apron, fortunately out of the way. As Eldridge comes to a stop there in the grass through 1 and 2, teleports that car back to pit road. Heart-stopping moment for our top 2 heading through the first corner.
If Todd Eldridge maybe hit the inside wall about a foot further ahead of on that machine, it was going to push him out into our leaders for a second there. Todd Eldridge, though, hitting the wall onto the straightaway that then launched him to the inside wall and luckily stayed on the apron, but the racing is still up front with Jeff Green and Christopher Morse Jr. for our lead.
You'd have to think that Jeff Green, in order to do what he's doing, which is enter high, dive it in low to guard that inside line, he's probably having to lift a little bit sooner for the entrance of the corner than he would have to if he was out there on 4 fresh tires. This says to me that if he is doing that very thing, we saw him pushing up off the corner on the last green flag run, and that was opening up the door for, I think it was at the time, Gerald Campbell to take a look and take the race lead away from him. I think that right now, if he's able to continue to hug that white line, Christopher Morse Jr. on those 4 fresh tires is going to have to use that outside line if he's going to get around this 10 car. But still 16 laps to go, still biding his time, not forcing the issue just yet.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Green is a veteran of racing stock cars. He understands the evolution of a race and how you need to really learn from your past mistakes at the start of a race to using them later on, and that's why we're seeing from the 10 machine able to keep that inside line, just doing the best that he can to hold off the 3 machine that we know has 4 fresh tires compared to the 2 that the 10 has.
It's a question of who wants it more, because you alluded to the fact the hard luck Jeff Green has had this season, despite being a contender up there at the front of the field just about every single week. Christopher Morse Jr., however, comes in the points leader, but winless. Both these drivers looking for their first win of the season.
And both of them, I think both are deserving of a win here, and they're both trying to win out here. And speaking of drivers that really would like a win, I mean, Tyler Riggs in 3rd. If we see our front 2 get a little racy, a little bit of contact makes between them, Tyler Riggs is set up perfectly for this race. But here's the factor we got to worry about. we are running in the 87 series rule set. There is no green-white checkered. So if we have a caution in the last about 5 to 4 laps, we will not see this race finish in the green flag. It will finish under yellow.
Excellent point, as right now Riggs has drifted back. He's about 3.5 seconds behind your top two now, as these two have remained single file, have not really gotten side by side, which has not allowed Tyler to be able to reel them in just yet. And we are ticking away closer to 10 laps to go. Right now, it looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race at the front of the field. The 2000 Xfinity Series champion trying to hold off the current points leader of the series.
And Jeff Green, we know how aggressive he is willing to be to get a win here today. If we see him, Christopher Morse Jr., make any move for a lead, that 10 machine is going to either block or possibly have to use his machine as a battering ram to keep that 3 machine back.
You know, when you're looking here from a third-person standpoint, you can see what a driver is doing. Christopher Morse Jr., that last time in turn 1, backed up his corner so he could get back to the throttle sooner. I think he's trying to set Green up on the back straightaway. Green pinches him down coming off of 4.
And Christopher Morse Jr. could have stayed in the gas. He would have been okay. He would have had the momentum, but the contact would have spun Green out. That's why he backed out there, as Christopher Morse Jr. really has the stronger car through the center of the corner.
You look at Christopher Morse Jr.'s up and down day on a chart, it would kind of look like somebody's pulses. He's been up to the front twice, but on both times that he worked his way to the front, a caution has foiled his plans and had him restart outside of the top 5 both times. He's back up here with a chance to get back to the front for a third time, this time trying to take the lead potentially for the race win.
10 laps to go. Now it's time. Your chips are down. You've got to get this win. And Randy Kokien, who was running back around 9th place, is going to be making a parking it in the back due to disconnection. A rough day for that 11 machine, but a top 10 finish. Back up front, the 11, the 10, and the 3. Here comes Christopher Morse Jr. on the inside.
Let's see what's going to happen here in 3 is Green on that second groove still. Morse going to start edging up to his door. They will be side by side coming to the start-finish line this time.
And this is where Christopher Morse Jr. has to feel confident. If they stay side by side, entering turn number 3, Morris is in the advantage as he's been holding up pretty well. Touches the apron, drifts up. He's got to let off.
And Green drove it pretty fast into that corner. It's actually going to hold the top spot. Those 2 tires somehow, someway holding off the 4 tires behind him.
And Jeff Green holding off the machine of the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr., who's been the best at the long run all race long. It's been the 3 being up front here at the end. But man, is Green doing a great job holding that 3 machine back.
9 drivers still running in this race, 6 of them on the lead lap, and the closest battle on track is on your screen. Jeff Green, Christopher Morse Jr. for this race win with less than 10 to go, 7.5 down the back straightaway.
And Green has to figure out, how do I keep really with my entry that I've been enjoying, starting high, getting low, entering number 3, because that has been the corner that has been looking like the weakness for this 10 machine. With how high he needs to enter, he's given that opening to Christopher Morse Jr. every single time.
And Jeff Green's having to split his priorities as well. Keep one eye out the windshield, making sure he doesn't overdrive it into the corner and drift up the track. Keep the other eye on the rearview mirror and see if Christopher Morse Jr. is going to make a move on him, whether it be in the corner or on the straightaways.
And so far, these drivers feeling comfortable and confident as they're going to continue to be working straight ahead. As reports from Randy Kokien, looks like his gas pedal broke, and that is why he is not able to continue racing anymore. A tough break for the 11 machine.
We knew Randy Kokien heading into this race was fighting pedal issues. He was almost able to make it the full 200 laps as Christopher Morse Jr., feeling that his options are running out, now jumps up to that second groove, trying to see if he can get around the outside of Jeff Green.
You talked about it earlier. You might have to move and use a different line from everyone else. And here we go. Can we see this 3 machine make the outside line work as we're inching closer and closer to the end? If a caution comes out, we will be seeing this thing finish under yellow.
Now, let's not forget, when Christopher Morse Jr. was making those passes on the outside line, there were about 6-7 cars up in the lead pack, so drivers were kind of stalling each other out heading into the corner. Jeff Green has clean air out in front of him, nobody to stifle the way he enters into a corner, so a little bit of a different scenario here for Christopher Morse Jr. trying to make that outside line work this time.
No lap machine should be an issue. The closest one is going to be Todd Eldridge, who got back out there on course after his little mishap that he had about 15 laps ago. But I don't think that he will be a factor for our lead pack.
I love the line that Jeff Green is running. He's not giving quite a car length of width on the inside line, but at the same time, he's running high enough that the second groove is not possible for Christopher Morse Jr. If he continues to run that line, he may have Christopher Morse Jr. on the ropes, but pushes up off the corner here, may have brushed the wall just a tad off of 2.
It was running just a little bit too high through 1 and 2, giving room for the 3 to run that white line and be so close to the bottom they got the momentum out. Here goes Christopher Morse Jr. right on the back bumper, trying to get the momentum, and if we see that 10 give room on the inside, the 3 will be there.
Sam, you talked about it. No green-white checkers with the 87 rules. We are now in the window that if a caution came out, the race would be over under yellow.
And these drivers have to understand that it's time to go. You got to get up front. That's why we're seeing Christopher Morse Jr. not waiting for the last lap. He's going to duck it in low here into turn number 3.
Let's see if Green's able to hang tough on that outside line. Last challenge he was able to. Trying to see who's going to get back to the throttle sooner. Morse edging up a little bit closer, side by side to the line. Who's going to get it this lap? I think it might have been Green, barely as they head for 1.
2 laps to go, still side by side. Here comes Green on the outside, trying to hold off the 3, and I don't think he's got it anymore. Morris has just been having such a strong launch off the corner. Here he comes, but Green still has it.
Jeff Green's not going to give up on that outside line. Door to door, heading into turn 3. 2 tires up top, 4 tires on the bottom. Green gonna try and pinch Christopher Morse Jr. down. This is gonna be a heck of a last lap as the white flag is in the air. They're still door to door to the white flag.
Side by side, it was Morris at the line. White flag in the air, and it's gonna be here side by side. It's 1 and 2.
Jeff Green drove it deep into the corner. Christopher Morse trying to get back to the throttle sooner. They make
contact.
Green gonna drift up towards the wall, getting loose. He saves it, but Christopher Morse Jr. continues to open the gap now. 4, 5 car lengths headed to 3.
It might have taken all day, but the 3 machine finally gets himself up front when it really matters the most.
Leading the points, winless, no longer here tonight. The World 300 at Charlotte is gonna go to Christopher Morse Jr.
And it was such a great battle, but Green gonna be finishing second on those 2 tires. I don't know how he kept up front for as long as he did.
Jeff Green just lost the edge there in turn 1 on the final lap, trying to pinch Christopher Morse Jr. down, nearly wrecked off of 2 for his trouble, but my goodness, the closest battle for the final 15 laps did not disappoint as Christopher Morse Jr. barely able to hold off Jeff Green there. Difference of tires, you'd have thought the 2 of them were still on a level playing field, as what an unbelievable final lap tonight after 200 laps.
Tyler Riggs with a top 3 finish, but he set up just in case. We saw a last lap caution come out, but he just was not able to be there at the end. But still, a top 3 finish. Blaine Atkins, after clobbering the wall, a 4th place finish for himself. I think those are both drivers that were hoping for a pass. I mean, they were both so quick, they could have been there for the win.
If you think about if a caution had come out with about 10, 15 laps to go, just how much of a different of a result this race possibly could have been. But boy, after the longest race of the season, 199 laps, to have it come down that close on the final lap, I don't think you could ask for anything better.
I mean, these 87 machines and this whole entire league, it seems like every week, you never know how the finish is going to be, but still a classic every time.
Shades of Alan Kulwicki as Christopher Morse Jr. for the first time this season gets to do a Polish victory lap, and he'll do it tonight at the D-shaped 1.5 miles of Charlotte Motor Speedway. You ran a Sam down through the top 4, top 5, going to be completed by Hank Steinmiller. Dallas Myhand, we really didn't see that 41 car up at the front really all night long. I'm not really sure what was going on with Dallas Myhand, as he's going to finish last car in the lead lap in the 6th position.
Yeah, Dallas got caught up in an early incident and really was saving his fast repair for later on in this race. That late caution never came, and a lot of machines were setting up, I think, just because of how racy guys were last week for the All-Star race. completely different. You're not racing for points, you're racing for money. So a lot of drivers being a lot more aggressive for that race and a lot more conservative here for this 200 lapper, where I think some drivers were expecting the aggressiveness to continue on in those last 50 laps.
Third caution of the evening was a heartbreaker for Seth Harrelson and Jake Hounshell. They got trapped a lap down because of it, never were able really to recover and get back in the lead lap. They'll finish in 7th and 8th. The rest of these drivers, for the most part, finished in the garage area. Randy Koking was out of the race in 9th. Eldridge continued on, finished. And then Gerald Campbell, who we wondered if he'd be able to win the All-Star race and the World 300 in 2 weeks. But due to a pit road speeding penalty, will finish in 11th, followed by Bo Brady. They both DNF'd. Kyle Johnson actually was on the grid, did not take the green, but then jumped onto pit road and was sitting there on pit road for about the final 25 laps. So he is still going to be scored in the finishing results for 13th place, even though he didn't complete a green flag lap here tonight.
But overall, the winner goes to the 3 machine of Christopher Morris Jr. Last lap pass, gets it done on green, and what an incredible finish. Like you said, it was a long race. Didn't know how this thing was going to finish out, but I think that was the only way we could have possibly written one of the best finishes so far.
No doubt about it. And of course, as well, we mentioned Christopher Morris Jr. coming into this race, the points leader. This is going to really help him continue to open up that points lead heading into next week at the Tough Concrete Monster Mile of Dover, in a series where it's all about accumulating the most points up to the end of the season. So Christopher Morris Jr., big time move here tonight, not only capturing his first win, but capturing a lot of points heading here into this second half of the season. Let's take and get some of our top 3 finishers here. Let's kick things off with our in-car reporter, Tyler Riggs, who brings it home 3rd place. Hey, Tyler, for one last time, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, I know that you were hoping for that caution there with 10 to go, 15 to go, somewhere there in that region, but still, your strategy here tonight brings you home with a 3rd place run. A thing that we commented on was the fact that most of this race, you were at a tire deficit in terms of the grip underneath you to everybody else around you, and you still remained up inside of the top 5, most of the night in the top 3. Unbelievable job by you, but man, is it disappointing that caution didn't come out based on the strategy you had?
No, I mean, hey, I had that factored in the fact that if I don't get it, and that, honestly, like you saw me fall off there at the end, I was pushing for all I was worth after the last pit stop, knowing that if I don't get the caution, I believed I have enough pace to, get up there hopefully and, get into the top 3. And if I didn't get the caution, then hey, worst case scenario, wind up 3rd. Sure enough, that's what I got. So I'm perfectly fine with that, man.
Well, we saw contact between the top 2 there on that final lap. And of course, with the 87 rules, if we ended up having a wreck with those top 2, race could have ended under caution, or on that final lap, you maybe could have sneaked by and taken the win. I don't know from your vantage point if you were able to see those top 2, but at any point in your mind were you kind of thinking, trying to plan out if those 2 did get together and wreck, where you were going to be able to go to sneak by them?
Well, I just got to tip the cap, obviously, to Christopher Morris there. He played it right. He saw me close into about 2 seconds because I think when I came out of pit road, I was about 4 seconds behind him and Jeff. And, once I got within about 2.5 or so, that's when he had caught up to Jeff. And instead of pushing Jeff right there where he could have, he just rode it out till the end, just went stride for stride with Jeff, kept that draft. And knowing that I really wouldn't have it, that's what really got me. I mean, it put me at a spot where I had to push, but at the same time, they could save a little bit more. And he played it right all the way down to the end there.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, we saw during this race progression of the racetrack and how it started to get cooler and cooler as the race went on. Did that affect your machine at all, really, in helping you or not helping you at the later end of this race?
Oh, absolutely. Allowed, and I kind of talked about in one of the times you guys came to me under caution there, but at that last run, fellas, I mean, I gave it all I had. I mean, I was pushing as hard as I could. I finished with the same amount of tire on the right front than I had in the first run, or the same amount of tire wear that I had in the first run where I was conserving those first 40 laps. It was 24%. So that tells you how big of a difference. Because if I did that the first run, With the hotter track, I blow a tire, but because of how much it cooled down, I was really able to just put the pedal to the metal and give it all it was worth.
Well, Tyler, obviously, it was great to be able to get a driver's point of view during the course of this 200 lapper. I know, obviously, a long one for you and the rest of the guys here tonight. You must be exhausted, both mentally and physically, but hopefully, you got enough strength to be able to do some shout outs here.
Oh, you know it, always, man. Gotta thank USA Comics, obviously, Uncanny Super Amazing Comics out there in Woodward, Oklahoma, or here, I should say, in my hometown. Just great group there, great group of guys, always supported me. And then, of course, Belly Up Fantasy. If you have not checked them out, if you're out there watching this and you need a good, reliable source for, whether it's football or whatever, go check those guys out, please, because they work their butts off to do all the research, try to give as unbiased opinions as they can based off what they see. So a great group over there led by Christopher Pinto. And then, of course, you guys up here in the booth do an excellent job. As a guy who's worked with y'all now for quite a bit, it's been a joy to do it. Honestly, don't tell my broadcast partner I said this, but it's almost a little bit better than the real broadcast partner app. It's been a lot of fun, and then of course, teammates at Person at Rig Motorsports couldn't ask for a better group of guys. Gerald usually runs with me this series, and he's always a blast to run with. So, yeah, that's pretty much it there.
Well, that's Tyler Riggs. He brings up home third place here tonight in the longest race of the season at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Congrats on a great run there, Tyler. We look forward to talking to you next week at the Monster Mile.
Yeah, thank you, Phils.
And before we go down to Victory Lane and talk with Christopher Morse Jr., I just want to quickly point out that I did make a mistake. I stated that this was the first win of the season for Christopher Morse Jr. That was incorrect. He actually did tame the Lady in Black at Darlington earlier on the season. So this was actually win number 2 on the season for the driver of the 3. And let's get him in now.
I was so worried.
Hey, Christopher, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Fellas, what is going on?
Well, I'll tell you what we just saw. We just saw a heck of a battle there in those final 5 laps, and an even more exciting final lap there between yourself and Jeff Green. I mean, our hearts were in our throats up here in the booth. I can only imagine what the range of emotions was down there underneath the helmet in that 3 car.
Let me tell you something, man. I started watching NASCAR in the early 2000s, and one of the things that I always used to watch was the Busch Series on Saturdays with my old man, and I always rooted for that number 10 Nesquik car, and he was always a fan of him when he drove for Earnhardt down there. And to race with Jeff Green like that, man, just to race with him, forget the winning part, but to race with him like that, it's just incredible. 25-year-old me with a 6-year-old son wants to freak out, and I can't because he's upstairs sleeping. But yeah, I'll tell you what, on the inside, I'm freaking out.
Obviously there was a difference in tires between the two of you. Jeff Green taking right sides only. You took 4 tires there on that pit stop. We saw you having to execute patience, knowing you had slightly faster car than he did, especially from the center of the corner off. How difficult was it as the laps continued to tick away, getting closer and closer to that checkered flag, to keep that patience going?
Yeah, I was more concerned. I knew he was going to race hard, and I was more concerned that if I went for the pass and started racing, either one, it was going to allow Tyler to catch up, or 2, we were going to get into each other. One of us was going to wreck, both of us was going to wreck. Caution was going to come out. And if the caution came out, it was Tyler's wreck. So yeah, I just wanted to stay behind him and hang out. And with 10 laps to go, I started pushing, and just like I expected, he raced hard and he raced clean. And I felt terrible. We got into each other there coming out of 2 on the final lap. I feel like I pushed up a little bit. He said he was trying to cross over and misjudged it, but I mean that's a 2000 NASCAR Xfinity champion right there that I just got to battle it out with for the win. It's awesome.
Yeah, Chris. I mean, it was an amazing battle to watch, and it kind of looked like it was a mixture of both things at the end of that lap. But you got the win. But before then, on that last restart, we saw that you you had some issues on pit road with missing your pit stop. What happened there on that last pit stop for yourself?
So at the beginning of the season, I had this little trick where I would pit 1 lap after everybody else, and nobody believed that there was a tire difference, but there was big tire difference for whatever reason. The tire model on this game, and maybe it's been updated since then, I don't know. But you saw it at Atlanta specifically, where I was able to start back in like 13th towards the end of the race. It just had a little bit better tires. So we went down pit road. What was it? It was lap 115, and I had 2 sets left, and I was I was trying to split it. I didn't want to go any less than 40 laps on a set of tires. So when we came down pit road, I was like, all right, I'm going to wait until lap 118, lap 119, because then that puts me in that range. And I told everybody that I missed my pit box because I didn't want them to think I had better tires. So it worked out.
Definitely did. Your second win of the season. One thing that I also want to just remark on here as well, we took a couple of times and did an in-car cam with you, and we did it with some other drivers as well, and we saw a lot of drivers doing that counter steering to the right with the fact of the rear end wanting to come around on them. We didn't really see you do that very much. What was the approach you had going into the corners where you didn't really have to counter steer the car that much, and it made it look like your car was the best handling one out there?
With these things, the way they handle, they feel like a boat, but you got to drive them like a plane. You land a plane, there's very little movement. So when you go down to the corner, you squeeze the brake just a little bit, let off the throttle. When you're chasing somebody, it's a lot easier because you kind of see where they're overdriving it or where they're underdriving it. You can base off that. But the approach was just to hit the bottom line every time I could. There was a couple times where I had to go up high, and it felt all right. I was able to make a few passes, but it wears the tires out. So I figured if I could land the car right down on the white line and hold it there, it wouldn't wear the tire out. I didn't have to counter steer much. And I don't know, man. I feel like these cars, the way I drive, I'm not a hot lapper. I'm a give it 20 laps and we'll see where everybody's tires are at kind of guy. And it worked out tonight.
Definitely did. 199 laps to get to that point in the longest race of the season, but you lead that all-important final lap to the checkered flag and get to celebrate down there in victory lane. Christopher, we're now going to turn the microphone over to you. Let's you do some race-winning shout-outs.
Yeah, shout out to Hijinx Clothing Company for coming on board. Get a hold of Zach Onsen. It's at Zach Onsen on Twitter. If you guys are interested in some clothing, you guys can check him out. I don't know if they have a website going. I got to get that information from him. It would make this a lot easier to do. And shout out to Belly Up Sports for coming on board and sponsoring the race. I wish we could put their logo down in the infield. Unfortunately, iRacing is not quite that realistic. But make sure you guys check them out on Twitter, Belly Up Sports. They've got so many different branches, and I can't remember all of them. But I believe they sponsor Tyler Riggs' car. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe they sponsor his car.
Yes, they do indeed. Well, that is Christopher Morse Jr. He gets his, I'll call it league leading, because it's actually a tie with Blaine Atkin, league leading second win of the season here tonight at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Congrats on a great run, Christopher. Tremendous race overall and unbelievable finish there between yourself and Jeff Green. And we wish you luck carrying this momentum into Dover next week.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
And I have to be honest here, Sam, 200 laps, I looked at it coming into this thing, longest race of the season, and I was thinking, boy, we're in for a long one. To be perfectly honest, this race seemed to kind of fly by a little quicker than I expected.
Yeah, it really did. It was probably one of the quicker races just because we had a lack of cautions, and these drivers were running so clean and conservative for most of this race. I think a couple of those cautions, and at the end of the race, the drivers were running a little bit more aggressive, but overall, a very quick race for how long it was.
And the thing that I love about the longer races too, especially the longer races that we run at Charlotte, we see so many different strategies. We kind of figure out, who's running what strategy, and somehow they all seem to kind of culminate there at the end. We heard with our race winner, Christopher Morse Jr., he purposely came to pit road a lap later on that final caution pacing to be able to get fresher tires. I mean, who would have thought one lap fresher tires was going to make that much of a difference?
And then we also got to give credit to Jeff Green, who was running on those two tires at the end and still competing with someone who had that one lap fresher tires. So really our top two class acts all race long, and Christopher Morse Jr. got it done at the end.
It's one of those classic Charlotte races where, yes, it takes a long time to get to the finish, but you certainly need to stick around because you never know what kind of a battle you're going to be in for. An unbelievable final 5 laps here tonight, resulting in a last lap pass that sees Christopher Morse Jr. go to victory lane. We appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight for this lengthy one. Next week, we're going to be at the Concrete Monster Mile. Dover International Speedway plays host for race number 9. But Sam, a long one here this evening. 200 laps here at Charlotte. But thanks for sticking it out with me. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure there, Seth.
We'll see you guys next Tuesday night from Dover here for the G4 Sim Racing Hijinx Clothing Company 87 series. For Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.